funny.
Recording in progress.
Rob's waving at you.
Good evening. It is Tuesday, December 6th at 5:30. Welcome to the Tompkins County Legislature. Please join us for the Pledge of Allegiance. Flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice. Roll call of members, please.
Greg Mezzi.
Present.
Veronica Pillar.
Here.
Lee Shurtleff. Mike Sigler.
Here.
Travis Brooks. Randy Brown.
Here.
Amanda Champion.
Here.
Deborah Dawson has asked to be excused. Rich John.
Here.
Dan Klein.
Here.
Ann Corman.
Present.
Mike Lane.
Here.
We have 10 members present. I'm sorry, Shauna Black.
Here.
11 members present.
Thank you. This evening, we do not have presentations, proclamations, petitions, communications, or notices. We will also not be having an executive session. Now it's time for privilege of the floor. It is very nice to see people, constituents in attendance to our meetings. It feels like it did 2.5 years ago, so we're very glad to have you. I'm going to read the rules for speaking under privilege of the floor. I agree to a 3-minute time limit. I agree not to raise my voice. I agree not to use lewd, obscene, profane, slanderous, or libelous language, or speak or act in a manner that would tend to incite a breach of the peace. I agree not to speak about county personnel matters. Personnel matters include comments about the job performance of named county employees other than elected officials. After 3 minutes, I agree to leave the microphone and yield the floor. Transferring time to another person is not permitted. I agree that if I cause a disruption and am asked to leave, I will leave the chambers. First up, we have Charles Geisler.
Mike? Does everyone have a copy of the handouts that I prepared? 3 pages? Good. I see you're reaching for them. My name is Charles Geisler. I'm a resident of Dryden. And last time I spoke to the county legislature was in 2019. I followed Kirby Edmonds. You'll remember him. He was quite a fantastic and eloquent advocate of affordable housing. Fast forward to the present, over these 4 years, in fact, our housing inventory has not at all kept up with the demand for housing, and prices have risen. Not only in the nation, but here in Tompkins County, we really have a fiasco on our hands. My interest today is to try to make a connection, as the handouts indicate, between our mobile home housing sector, which is surprisingly abundant in Tompkins County, and affordable housing. And the reason I'm doing this is because I see some sunlight in the tunnel. You all know that mobile homes are affordable housing for many low and moderate income people in the county. There's a sticking point, however, and that is utilities in mobile homes are godforsaken. They're a mess, and many residents in this housing stock struggle with this. Fortunately, there are state and federal programs that are multiplying to do something about that. So it's my interest in speaking to this opportunity, if you will, a way that we perhaps can turn around our affordable housing dilemma. You don't see too many mobile homes. In the handout, I refer to M&MH. That's mobile and manufactured homes. They're used interchangeably, so I just went along with that, and I won't go into that much now. You don't see many mobile or manufactured homes in the city of Ithaca, but in the town of Dryden, where I come from, guess what? They're the second most common form of housing. That's stunning. Think about that. As I have done canvassing for many different purposes over the years, I've encountered former school teachers living in mobile homes, people who taught my daughter. I encountered a young woman who had dropped out of TC3 for medical reasons, and she would not have been able to afford the rent in her mobile home had it not been for a Halco heat pump. May I continue a bit, please?
Yeah, if another minute or so.
Thank you very
Thank you.
much. I appreciate it. And another person, one of the leaders of Bike Share Ithaca, another person that I interviewed in mobile homes. The list goes on, and not least of which are the elderly, who are numerous in our mobile home population. They are on fixed incomes, and they are panicking because of the price of propane, which is their go-to fuel in most instances. We got to change that. We've got to electrify, we've got to weatherize, we've got to retire the older stock, and much more, including conservation uses. So I see benefits in more initiatives on mobile homes that deal with affordability, with reducing our carbon footprint as we bring down these utility bills through a variety of ways, and I see dealing with our elder housing challenge. This is really a shock absorber that we're not taking advantage of, and we could. Thanks very much.
Thank you. Next is Fegu Gakis.
I'm going to keep my mask on, so can you hear me okay?
Sure
Okay.
can.
Fegu Gakis, City of Ithaca. I'm here once again to talk about an old problem, and that is the dockless bicycles. I have spoken to you many times before about it, as well as the city in front of Common Council. The problem remains the same. That's very important to make clear. We have the same guy who brought these bikes with signing that contract with Mayor's Vonte without anybody knowing that they were coming to Ithaca. The same guy now has been hired. The same problems remain, and we're now paying this person. It's like insulting to see the name Ithaca on these bicycles. I've been told, like, I'm against bicycles by someone who worked for Lime in the past, who's a bicyclist in Ithaca. That's offensive to me. I mean, that's all I do. I ride my bike for 40 years. I don't know how to drive. Dwight Mengel, there was an article, I think in the Ithaca Times, I don't have it with me and I had misplaced it, but something about a public hearing, or requesting, I should say, a public hearing on issues of transportation. So I am requesting right now, because he doesn't see this problem the way I do, and the whole bicycle community in Ithaca does not see this problem the way I do. I feel very alone, but I'm totally dismayed and depressed about it because the problem is so huge. Nothing has been addressed from the problems in the past. These bikes are still in bike racks, they're still being abandoned everywhere, and they're not at their full force. They've released some of them, but when they release all of them, the problem's still going to be the same. You're hiring this person who worked for a major company like Lime, okay, and operating the same way. I don't understand why people don't see the problem. So I'm requesting a public hearing because nobody wants to hear about the problems. We need a public hearing. I've been asking that since when Lime even appeared. I went to Common Council and said, you know, this was done in secret. Okay, they didn't want to reprimand Svante at the time, Mayor Svante, but fine, but do something now. The same problem exists once again. Now, I see it because I ride my bike. I need the bike rack. I'm on my bike all the time, and I see the problem. When I came before you in the past, I had said, please do a Q&A with me. I could answer the questions. When you have representatives here from the city, and after I'm speaking, they have nothing to say? They have nothing to say? Like my council person, I'm his constituent. He comes here, has nothing to say? I mean, this is not, I don't know, this is not a way to govern. This is not a way to, is my time up?
Yeah, we give you a little bit more time.
But I mean, the thing that's distressing for me, most of all, is I begged the Ithaca Times to interview me, get another opinion, get an opinion about the problems. Nobody wants. They don't want me on a talk show. They don't want me in the paper. It's like I'm silenced. And I'm frustrated because I don't want to be silenced. I have something to say, okay? I have something important to say. I live on my bicycle practically, and I see the problems. So I don't know where to go anymore. I'm going to go to Common Council again tomorrow night, but it's like talking to the wall. Nothing happens. Nothing happens. But I'll leave you with this thought. Please think about having a Q&A with me, and also if they're saying that someone from the community can ask for a public hearing on transportation issues, we need to do that. So that's very important. I don't know where the deadline is for that, but I saw it in the paper like I think 2 weeks ago. So we need to have a public hearing before these things get unleashed more. We need to know what this guy that was hired, what is he doing? What is he doing? I want to know what is he doing, because we need someone who we could sit down and see how can you use a system, because other communities have places where these bikes are left and these bikes are picked up. That means infrastructure, which the guy who runs the drop bikes in Ithaca said, oh, we don't have the infrastructure. Well, if you don't have the infrastructure for something, then you can't do it. You just can't do it.
Faye,
we need to talk about how these things, whether they can or cannot operate. I think right now they should not be on our roads. Thank you very much for the extra time. I really appreciate it. Thank you, and happy holidays.
Thanks for coming, Faye. Thank you. We always like hearing from you. Next is Michael Finner.
Good evening. I appreciate the opportunity again to speak tonight. A month ago, I asked the question, where is the county health department and why is this county resource not focusing on the biohazard areas surrounding Cherry Street? Not one person responded. Am I someone that doesn't deserve an answer? Maybe I'm not. However, there are many that would like to know. It is not a hard question, maybe a hard one to answer. I don't expect an answer tonight, but I would appreciate an answer, or I'm open to having a discussion about it. Change my perception of the county political leadership and build a relationship with me. I can't change you. You can make changes with self that may change my perception of you. The First Amendment guarantees the right to express ideas and information on a basic level. It means that people can express an opinion, even an unpopular or unsavory one, without fear of government censorship. Last month, a legislator called citizens white supremacists for expressing their opinions, encouraging pushback and shutdown of their First Amendment rights, and commending county employees for doing that. Although the right to say what they did is theirs, pushing back by encouraging voices to be silenced might have legal ramifications, all of which will be a cost to taxpayers of this community. Censorship with Nazi Germany included control of all forms of mass communication, which included newspaper, music, literature, radio, and film. The same body also produced and disseminated their own literature, which was solely devoted to furthering Nazi ideas and myths. Anti-Semitism lay at the core of their works. From my seat, the legislator is promoting ideals of Adolf Hitler in Nazi Germany. I encourage you to change my opinion of you. Partisanship is prejudice in favor of particular cause. Partisanship is driving a wedge and pushing those that disagree or have different opinions further apart. This isn't working. It is time to do something different. Thank you.
Thank you. Next is Ray Schlatter.
Good evening. I'm Ray Schlatter, and I live here in the city of Ithaca. I've been here for, it'll be 50 years next year. So enjoyed this community very much. I'm here to talk about the community recovery funds, but more importantly, I want to talk about dignity. And I want to talk about the dignity of work. And I want to talk about the intersection between the dignity of work and housing and Finger Lakes reuse. Why do I say that? Well, you know, and ironically, I didn't think we'd be talking about the Depression era, but here we are. When I saw the list and the work that you folks are doing in parceling out the community recovery funds, I was struck by Norman Rockwell's 4 freedoms. The freedom of worship, the freedom of speech, of course, the freedom from fear, obviously, and Nazi Germany comes into play, but most importantly, the freedom from want. The freedom from want. And when you look at those incredible paintings, you see the dignity of work, the dignity of self-sustenance, the dignity of being able to take care of your family. Now, what does that have to do with what you folks are doing? When I looked at the list, and by the way, nice job. You hired a great expert. The expert rated all of these grant applications. You had honestly a yeoman's task. It was, I applaud you for that. One thing that struck me was that the organizations that scored best at the highest level using that matrix were primarily housing. And that makes sense, because think about it, the dignity of the freedom from want, of course, at core is housing. But part and parcel with housing is work. You need both to be self-sustaining in a community. You need both to have the dignity from want. You need both. And what does that have to do with Finger Lakes Reuse? Well, Finger Lakes Reuse is one of the largest employers and trainers of otherwise unemployed people in this community. It's extraordinary what it does. It brings but it's financially feasible. It brings back to the community over $300,000 a year in sales tax revenue. And at the same time, it employs over 90 people. Many of these people would not have jobs. Many of these people are reentry. Many of these people are getting training in useful skills, not just service skills. We're talking about useful skills so that they can, in fact, enjoy the dignity from want, the dignity of work, the dignity of self-sustenance. So I would urge you, take another look at that, please, and see if there is some way that you can accommodate in tandem the housing and the work. Finger Lakes Reuse. Thank you.
Thank you. Next is Susan Curry.
Good evening. Can you hear me?
We can.
My name is Susan Curry, and I'm a candidate for the January 24th special election to represent District 3. I've lived in Tompkins County for more than 40 years, and I love the county, and in District 3 for over 30. I hope to honor and continue the legacy of service provided by Henry Granison. And I have worked with the legislature very closely as the head of a large county agency. And recently I've been attending meetings and watching in advance of the election so that I can be as prepared as possible. I'm ready to listen, I'm ready to work hard, and I'm really learning a lot from all of the discussion here. So thank you for the opportunity to run for the office, to serve District 3 and the county. Thank you.
Thank you, Susan. Next is Robin Elliott.
Hello. Hi, my name is Robin Elliott. I'm the Associate Director here from Finger Lakes Reuse tonight. As Ray kindly let you know, we've submitted an application for Community Recovery Fund assistance, and we're hoping it'll have full consideration in the upcoming process later this month. I do also want to say thank you so much to the members of the Recovery Fund Committee, as well as the MRB Group consultants. I've seen a bit of the committee sessions online, and I recognize the significant time and work that's been going through this process so far. Finger Lakes Reuse is a nonprofit, and we've become a vital resource in Tompkins County for all kinds of people. Those looking to responsibly get rid of their unwanted materials, those in need of affordable goods, people looking to work in quality jobs that address climate issues, and more. We have a triple bottom line mission to support local people, protect the planet, and to generate revenue that stays local. We're pioneering a model that is gaining attention nationally. There are many successful thrift resellers of donated or consigned materials, but what makes our model unique is the waste diversion and environmental mission at our core. Our model is more comprehensive than others, accepting a broad array of materials, including repairable electronics to building materials, and we prioritize collaboration to create a collective impact. For the county, local dollars used to purchase used goods at our reuse centers are reinvested into programs that address county priorities, including workforce development, poverty relief, sustainability, and community resiliency. Every county resident can use our services. Many do. We've hired at least 20 people, previously relying on benefit programs. We've had 143 people to date complete our job training program successfully. We're also increasingly working with youth ages 14 to 24, often in first-time job experiences, and that includes more than 30 individuals this year with partnering agencies. So far this year, we've helped over 440 households, as well as 27 local organizations in need, to acquire goods from our reuse centers, totaling over $83,000 in value to provide those materials. We partner with over 30 service agencies to refer their clients to us through this program when they have a need, and this is a program that's really one of its kind in our service area. That's called the Reuse Materials Access Program. The funding support we're now seeking will provide critical capacity building in response to increasing demand for what has become an essential community resource. Our proposal includes supporting new jobs, a box truck for materials management, critical parking lot repairs, security equipment, and job trainee support. As with all of our staff, jobs created will include a living wage and health benefits. Those workers directly support our core operations, and so they'll also increase revenue to support their positions beyond the funding period. As you'll hear a few others tonight in support of reuse, and there are several more here sitting, just joining us today in support. From all of us, I just want to say thank you once more for your time and consideration.
Thank you. Next, we have Krista Nunez.
Good evening, everyone. Thank you so much. Krista Nunez from the town of Ithaca, speaking on behalf of Cuba International's Quarter Acre for the People project regarding our application to the Tompkins County Recovery Fund. Just wanted to let you know, in recent studies on the effects of COVID-19 and how they exacerbate existing challenges and inequities in our community, it has been found that race is the greatest factor in predicting catastrophic housing outcomes, such as eviction, foreclosure, and homelessness. Single Black women with children are 3 times more likely than other groups to be evicted, and food insecurity realities in our county also follow that same trajectory. This project directly addresses these issues in ways that affirm the dignity and work goals of our community members, as well as follow commitments to sustainable and ecological building and agricultural practices. Thank you so much for your time and your consideration.
Thank you. Gideon Stone.
Good evening, everyone. My name is Gideon Stone. I've been living here in Ithaca for going on 18 years now. One of the founding members of Trade Design Build. We're a local architecture, construction, and furniture company. And I'm here tonight to represent Finger Lakes Reuse. Have the current honor of serving as president of the board. I just wanted to come to talk to you tonight on the same topic as everyone else who's here, kind of representing the organization. And there's two things that I really wanted to touch on specifically. The first is just to highlight how important the organization is to the community. My organization, we're involved in the construction industry and the construction process, and I've been donating and bringing goods to Reuse for a number of years, and we've gotten to a point with my company where anytime we do a demolition project or we're taking a building apart or pulling anything apart or have leftover materials from the construction process, Finger Lakes Reuse is almost higher priority for a stop before we go to our dumpsters or go to the landfill. It's become an absolute kind of critical step in what we do on the daily, and especially working in one of the most kind of wasteful and impactful industries on the planet. It's I can't speak enough for how important it is that we've got an opportunity in this community to be able to have a resource like that, to be able to take a lot of these materials and know, that they're not getting dumped and they're not getting wasted, because we in the industry really understand the impacts of that in the work that we do, and it's just an amazing resource to have access to. The second thing that I wanted to bring up and point out is just how important the funding that we have requested is for the organization to continue to grow our capacity to serve the community. I've been on the board now for, I think, between 4 and 5 years, and we've diligently been looking at and working on increasing our business acumen and understanding the work that we do in the context of an enormous amount of growth in the industry and what we've done over the years. We opened the doors back in 2007, and the business has grown to the point now where we do over $3.5 million in gross revenues every year, which is an astonishing amount for what you consider it is. The one thing that sticks out to me as I've gone through the process of getting to know the organization is there's a key point of data in our regular budget reviews and conversations around the finances of the organization that comes to mind. And it's that for every employee that we hire, for every full-time employee, we see an increase of $30 an hour in gross revenue sales increase. So the amount of money that we've asked for would allow us to hire an additional 10 people as full-time employees for the organization, which would equate to over $620,000 in increased revenues from sales every year. So understanding that there is this triple bottom line embedded in the organization and the great amount of good that it does, there's a direct return that would happen with this kind of investment in this organization and a direct impact on the community long term for us to be able to continue what we do for years to come. So thank you for your time.
Thank you. Next is Jordan Clemens.
Hello, how y'all doing? My name is Jordan Clemens. I'm the founder of Unbroken Promise Initiative. A lot of you all may have seen me in the publications in 2020. First of all, I want to just say I'm community first. I'm built on community. I'm a 7th generation here. You guys may have seen that in the publications as well. I represent a demographic of people who is below the poverty threshold. But I was one of the fortunate ones to overcome poverty here locally. And what I want to speak about is not necessarily the process of TC Recovery Fund, because I understand being awarded leading the transportation sector through the NYSERDA Electric Mobility Challenge, which is a state competition, I understand how competitive these grant processes could be and how difficult they can be. So what I want to do is I want to reiterate and just bring to light that, there's a demographic of people on the West End, West Hill of Ithaca who have been pushed out of the north side and south side flats of Ithaca. They now reside on pretty much what you could be considered as a red line on the West End. They're on the hill, and from our research, it shows that pretty much the only thing that people identify with services on the West End, West Hill is transportation. Everything else, comes and goes. But, since I've been in this space, I've seen and watched county legislature meetings, and all of your subcommittee meetings. I've watched city. I've done my due diligence. I could promise you that. And I've seen there's a cycle. There's a correlation here that I see. And, my brain works to watch trends, because historically, I've learned that, while I like to think that I'm the first one to see the huge gaps in my community and where I come from and be the first representation, I could go all the way back to Frederick Douglass. He was saying some of the same things back when he was coming up as I was saying in 2020. So I say, why is this? And as I look and see who makes the decisions collectively, we don't really have the ability to compete as a community. I see that there is a thinking that, when you allocate funding to Southside or GAC, that takes care of the minority disadvantaged community problem. But what people fail to realize is in the late 90s, early 2000s, there was revitalization that happened in our community. And so people have now been pushed to the West End, West Hill, and there's a lack of infrastructure for programs and services, education, which, mental health services. And there are some great organizations out there doing great things. I'm not taking it away. I'm saying that culturally is where our community is really suffering, and we're losing our youth and we're losing our hope. And what happens when that happens is things get exacerbated, violence occurs, drug addiction increases, both through adults and children. And that is who Unbroken Promise Initiative is. That is the goal. That is the long walk that, I undertook in 2020. So I know that a lot of you all have not had individual conversations with me, but I just wanted to bring to your attention that the ways that we are operating from an allocation of funding is the same way that I see the city, and I pointed out to the city that you all are really allocating resources the same way you've been allocating resources to the same neighborhoods and totally disregarding a demographic of people. I yield my time. Thank you.
Thank you. Next, we're going to move to the individuals that signed up for privilege of the floor through our Zoom. First on the list is Sabrina Letty.
Hi, can you hear me?
Yes, we can.
Awesome. Thank you for giving me time to speak here tonight. My name is Sabrina Letty. I'm an Ithaca resident, and I'm here on behalf of the Free Cat campaign to request that the Tompkins County Legislature support our movement to eliminate TCAP fares and expand service by increasing Cornell University's contribution to the TCAP budget. I've spoken to you all about our campaign in the past, and so today I won't rehash how Free Cat would benefit our climate by promoting public transit over private vehicles, or how it would improve quality of life by removing barriers to mobility. I also won't rehash how Free Cat would make our county a leader in equity-minded environmental justice, like neighboring Ulster County, whose legislature voted to remove transit fares just a few months ago. Today, instead, I'm here to express why we believe Cornell should fund this initiative. And this has been the most contentious point of our campaign, as many in local government seem hesitant to poke the very powerful bear and demand that Cornell contribute more for the well-being of our community. Cornell is the wealthiest entity in the county, with an endowment of $10 billion and an annual revenue of over $5 billion, and the power that wealth bestows is immense. It has allowed Cornell to unfairly pay just over a quarter of TCAT's budget, while Cornell staff and students make up over 3/4 of TCAT riders. Earlier this year, it also allowed Cornell to bully their way into a 0% increase in their contribution to TCAT despite immense inflation, arguing that reduced service should mean that they pay less to the bus service, even though only one of the 4 lines with reduced service at that time circulated on Cornell's campus. Also, even though these service cuts affect everyone and the inflation has caused costs to raise through every aspect of TCAT's operation, nonetheless, Cornell was the one that received that discount, and that discount followed a 2021 discount as well on fares of over $300,000 to Cornell as TCAT struggled through the pandemic. So time and time again, Cornell has exerted pressure on TCAT in their own financial interest, and they've won. They repeatedly receive relief when they are not the ones who are suffering the most. And now, as TCAT is struggling right now with staffing shortages and supply chain issues, Cornell refuses to answer our call to contribute more. TCAT need funds to pay their drivers and mechanics more, or they will never maintain the necessary staff to serve this community. That money, like the money it would take to eliminate fares, is pennies to Cornell. It is a fraction of a % of their annual operating budget, and yet they have not offered any. And we are the ones suffering for it. I've heard stories from elderly citizens who've waited over an hour in the cold for a bus ride to their doctor, not knowing that their line was cut, or working class single mothers commuting from out of the city who have had to reorganize their family's entire schedules to accommodate the inconsistent bus schedules, threatening her job when she couldn't make her shift on time. Why are these people the ones who are suffering? Why is the hardship being transferred to the most vulnerable communities when Cornell is more than capable of providing relief? Cornell is built on this community, and it could not survive without it. We at FreeCat refuse to bow to its whims, especially when they are directly contrary to the well-being of the community. I hope that you all agree with me, and I hope that you'll use your position as elected officials to advocate for the people that you were placed here to serve and protect by supporting the FreeCat campaign and supporting TCAT workers. Thanks, and I relinquish the rest of my time.
Thank you, Sabrina. Next is Baz Perry.
Thank you so much. I won't take too much of your time. I just came here. I'm a Danby resident and a food justice advocate, and I'm very pleased to see so many wonderful farm and food access programs scoring very highly on the matrix. I do appreciate the thoroughness that the committee's gone through to allocate this important source of funding for our community. And I really came mostly to just reiterate that a dollar spent on local food has a multiplier effect. Farmers tend to then re-spend that money in the community, resulting in additional jobs. For every one job in local farming, it creates almost another half full-time job in the economy, and about 48 cents of additional income paid on services and goods in the local economy. When this money is given to food access programs at places like Fort Baptist Farm, or through subsidized CSA shares through Healthy Food for All, and organizations like Cuba International and others, those food dollars then have a multiplier effect as well, because they've fed a community member, they've provided revenue to the local farm, and then they've also provided revenue to the services and goods that support that farm. So I just want to thank you all for your support of many of these important programs that provide land stewardship, as well as food access and economic development opportunities. A new report from Hunger Free America just showed a 35% increase in the number of people in New York State who do not have enough food or the money for food for a full week. This is just showing that food insecurity is going to continue to increase as we see inflation in the food system. And so support of food pantry and other efforts and increasing the infrastructure will really be important in the years ahead. Since I have one more minute, I just want to impromptu also put in some support for the Unbroken Promises Initiative. I noticed that that is not on the committee's scoring sheet. And just want to say that, while I haven't worked directly with the people in leadership there, I've worked in food access programs in the West End, West Village area. And we found a number of challenges, especially during COVID, in terms of finding ways to transport food up and down the hill, having facilities to store food. And so it results in only the ability to have pop-up pantries and unrefrigerated cabinets, and the ability to help people either have services and goods brought to them or help people from the West Village access the transportation they need to run their errands and access health care and job opportunities. It, to me, is a problem that is not going to be solved by an outside foundation. Nobody who lives outside of Tompkins can have the intimate knowledge that we have about that specific failing in our infrastructure. So while all of these other wonderful programs that you allocated funds to are definitely worth support, I would like you to review them with an eye towards their ability to gain access to other resources, and whether or not anyone outside of the Tompkins County Legislature and Tompkins County residents and foundations will have the foresight to see how important development is that's being led by unbroken promises. Thank you so much.
Thank you. Next, we have Casey Eichler.
Can you hear me?
We can.
Awesome. Thank you. So first, I'd like to thank you all for allowing me to speak here. I'm here on behalf of Ithaca Reuse and the funding allocations for that. My name is Casey Eckler. I'm the president of Labor's Local 785 located here in Ithaca. Over the past winter, I was fortunate enough to have been a part of a project, a joint project with Ithaca Reuse and a large group of volunteers from the community. During that time, I was able to integrate some of my young apprentices to assist in the demolition of several of the old homes in College Town. Many of you guys know that that project turned into a much bigger project. So the demolition was only the first part. Now they're building affordable housing, student housing. So it's all around helping the community. My personal outtake from this project was a serious eye-opener. When I entered into an agreement and to be a part of this project, I'm going to admit that my thinking was very short-sighted. I assumed it'd be a one-time job that didn't really provide much growth in the future, and I was 100% wrong. What I realized after the project was up and running, and after many conversations with Diane Cohen, was not only was the project a great opportunity at the time, but it could also be a great way to integrate some of the volunteers from the community who are looking to get into the construction field and good local jobs. So Tompkins County currently has an unemployment rate of 2.5%. That equates to over 2,600 people living in our community without jobs. Ithaca Reuse provides local employment to over 90 people as of right now, and I'm sure if granted additional funding, that would only allow Ithaca Reuse to hire more people from our community. In addition to Ithaca Reuse growing in size and hiring capabilities, with the partnership of local labor leaders like myself in the community, it would allow a clear pathway for members of the community to gain a career with paid training as well as pensions and health cares. I'm a very strong advocate for using local labor on local projects. I think it's very important. It serves as a multiplier, if you would, because every dollar that you earn in a community that you live in, you're reinvesting that money into the community. So I think that Ithaca Reuse is a key part of that equation. Another key point that I feel is important in the decision-making of whether to provide additional funding to Ithaca Reuse is the fact that the materials that they are retrieving and selling back into the community, are materials that they are not sending to the landfill. It's my belief that the cost savings from not sending so much material to the landfill in conjunction with the sales tax revenue that they produce while selling those same goods is clearly a productive piece of the Tompkins County puzzle. In conclusion, I would like to thank you all again for allowing me to be heard on such an important topic. My hope is that in some way, this will help you in your decision to allow more funding to the Ithaca Reuse Center so that they can continue to make strides to improving our beautiful city. Thank you.
Thank you, Casey. Next, we have Vanessa Greenlee.
She must have accidentally signed out.
Okay. Next on the list is Aloja Araweli.
Aloja's not in the meeting.
Okay. Moving on to municipal officials, George McGonigal sends his regards. He is unable to make it this evening from the city of Ithaca. However, we do have Michael Allinger from Newfield. Welcome to our meeting, Michael.
Thank you. Are you able to hear me okay?
Yes, we can.
Oh, very good. Well, again, thank you for extending this opportunity. I'm here because I was recently made aware of a proposal for funding through the Tompkins County Recovery Fund program. And the proposal came from Second Wind Cottages, a not-for-profit which operates in Newfield, New York, that proposed the construction of 25 temporary campsites at their site of 1435 Elmira Road. And not by coincidence, the proposal was identical in nature to a proposal set forth by the group Tides, the Ithaca Dedicated Encampment Site, which was presented both to the county and to the city of Ithaca earlier this year. I say that not by coincidence because I know that Mr. Reedy, founder of Second Wind, he's a member of Tides and was a contributor to that proposal. Now, there are several components in the Tide proposal lacking in this plan for the Newfield site. And those are the ones that are concerned to the town itself. And some of those components that are included in the Second Wind proposal are 25 individual camping cabins that meet New York State Department of Health requirements for campsites. All right, the campsites will provide low barrier entry for homeless men now residing in the part of Ithaca colloquially known as the Jungle, which is located behind Walmart. Low barrier means that there wouldn't be conditions, provisions, or requirements that might prevent a homeless person from obtaining housing in Second Wind. Typically, the homeless are struggling to overcome addiction, whether it's substance abuse, behavioral nature. Often, homeless people are registered sex offenders, which is a group that has challenges in obtaining housing. So Second Wind currently houses 18 men working toward moving their lives forward and away from addictions and leading productive lives, preparing to find jobs and housing outside of Second Wind. All right, so Second Wind has operated for 13 years, starting with building 6 cottages in 2013 and 3 more each year for 2015, 2016, 17, and 18. They have long been planning on building a community center where county services could be brought to Second Wind. And in our opinion, this would be a necessity to be in place before expanding the housing capacity in Newfield. Also, Second Wind currently operates on 1 volunteer specialist, a homeless crisis alleviation coordinator, and other volunteers. It is lacking in key support components that are included in the Tides plan, which would provide for 24/7 on-site management and support by homeless professionals. Surprisingly, the lack of 24/7 monitoring of Second Wind has resulted only in a handful of incidences, and the most notable being the loss endured by a local business owner back in 2021. But bringing an additional 25 men is more than doubling their responsibilities without an increased access in the service the men would need to move forward in their lives. Services like case management, healthcare providers, substance abuse and addiction management, just to name a few, all of which are covered by the Tides proposal. It's the view of the town that providing 24/7 monitoring of the facility housing that many at-risk men would be a minimum requirement. I feel that the proposal submitted to the Tompkins County Recovery Fund program is a response to the city of Ithaca not moving forward fast enough on Tides. The Tides proposal has been presented both to the county and to the city with favorable acceptance. The city has formed a committee, separate from their housing committees, to look carefully at gathering an RFP or an RFEI. In short, they're showing due diligence in reviewing every aspect of the proposal and ensuring it is done right. I feel the town of Newfield should be allowed to do their due diligence to obtain input from property owners and local businesses on the project as well. This could take time and effort, but I would like to see full transparency to the neighbors of Second Wind rather than have them just wake up one morning and find that 18 residences have grown to nearly 50. Now, homelessness is a problem that is countywide and requires a solution that is countywide. Newfield and Dryden should not be alone in providing space for the solution. I believe the city of Ithaca will eventually come through with something that resembles Tide's proposal. I don't believe that the county should provide funding to a project proposal by an organization, albeit successful, that might be unwelcomed by the people who live and work in that community. As always, just because we can do something doesn't mean that we should. And I'll leave it at that and yield the rest of my time.
Thank you, Michael. We typically, for municipal officials, have a short Q&A. And I wanted to see if you would entertain some questions, if my colleagues had questions for you.
Absolutely.
Okay. The other part that I want to set forward is that this is going to be part of a very big conversation on the 20th, whenever we discuss the Community Recovery Fund. And so I don't think we need to debate the merits of this particular grant request or reward. So I would ask if legislators have questions about the project that they would like to direct to the supervisor, then let's go that route. We'll take a few minutes to do that. Wow, I gave that speech for nothing. Oh, Mike Lane.
I just want to say I appreciate Supervisor Allinger coming in and talking about this, and I see we have a written version of it. It's not an issue I was well aware of, so thanks for bringing it to our attention.
Thank you, sir.
Anyone else this evening? Okay. Thank you very much, Michael, for coming in this evening. You're always welcome to come in and give a report on Newfield. We receive really nice updates from Randy as well, but it would be great to have you.
Thank you.
Okay. Next, we are going to open it up to privilege of the floor for legislators. Dan Klein.
Thank you. I wanted to say something while the members of the public who came out tonight are still in the room. I have nothing new to say, nothing dramatic. Just this, that we had over $32 million in requests for the Community Recovery Fund. We had 212 applications, and we only had $6.5 million to give out. So it was simply that we had to disappoint a lot of people. We had to say no to a lot of really worthy projects. We heard from 3 different groups tonight that at this moment at least they're not on the list to get funding. And I think I speak on behalf of all my colleagues, like, these are great projects. We wish we could give the money. We really do. But if we did, it would mean we would not be giving money to some other project. And we would have a separate group of people in here tonight, from some mental health provider, from some medical provider, from some educational institution, from a homelessness project, saying, we have a great project, how come we're not getting money? It's just an unfortunate, simple answer is that we just had a limited amount of money and we had to make difficult choices, and we did. So that is the best I can say. I'm happy to talk to any applicant further. I've been in touch with a lot of you guys already, and we'll continue the conversation if you want. Thanks.
Thank you, Dan. Greg Mezzi.
Yeah, a little bit to that. I just want to thank everybody for coming out. This is my absolute favorite part of the entire process, that we have the pleasure of going through twice a month. And, you know, we cover a range of issues, and we really hear what's important. We hear where we may have shortcomings in not responding. We hear where we have opportunities throughout the community, and it really is helpful. And I know it takes a lot. It takes a lot of your time to come and prepare your remarks and stand in front of us and know that you're on TV and all this other thing, but it really does make a difference. And you are heard, and it does set in, and it does help change perspective or shift perspective. So it's really an important and critical piece to the process. So I would encourage you, as there are issues that come up, as you see things that we could be doing better, please come, tell your friends, right? If we had to sit here for 2 hours at the beginning of every meeting, that would be a welcomed a welcome thing, because I think this is really what it's about. We're here because of all of you, and I do appreciate everybody coming and taking the time, because we sometimes will fall into our tunnel vision or our issue focus area, and this is a great reminder that there's so much more throughout our county, and I really appreciate this, and I hope we have turnout like this every meeting, because this is great, not just when there's $6.5 million on the line, but it really is nice to hear from you, and thank you for being here.
Thank you, Greg. Rich John.
Thank you, Shauna. And I would echo what Greg just said and add that when we got the report of the $32 million figure of all the requests, I said that this is going to be really hard, but it's going to be really good for us, because we would have this community knowledge and discussion of what do people really think is important here. And we are going to disappoint some groups and people. I certainly understand that. At the same time, I think this is the beginning of a much longer and more complex conversation. I would mention that one of our budget items for 2023 is to fund grant administration and grant writing capability for the county. With knowledge of what the real needs are in our community, we should really take a force-forward hunting approach to try to fund as many of these as we can, even if they don't fit into this original $6.5 million. I just want to assure everybody, I don't think this story is over with whatever money we allocate to whatever groups are successful here. That was one thing I wanted to say. And I just wanted to note otherwise the passing of Aurora Valenti, who served as our county clerk for many years. We're certainly blessed with a really, really accomplished county clerk's office. And she, I think, was instrumental in building the foundation for that. I also knew her as a highly accomplished legal secretary in our community. And I also knew her as a mother of my classmate as I was growing up, Tom Valenti, who played hockey with me. He was a goalie, and his mother would give us rides to the rink, and she was a very nice woman. Tom developed into a highly accomplished and successful chef around the world, and I think some of that was because he was raised so well. She was a nice lady and an important lady in our society. She was endorsed by Democrats and Republicans repeatedly in her elections because she served the public so well. And so I just didn't want the moment to pass without giving her a salute. Thank you.
Thank you, Rich. Randy Brown.
Yes, thank you. I just wanted to let a few people know that the new legislators and any other legislature wants to come. We're meeting with Office of Aging on Friday at 9:30 to about 11. We get a tour of the building. People might be interested in that as well as meet the people. And at 11:30, we're meeting with a new vision class, which is high school seniors, through a BOCES program at a class for engineering taught at Cornell. And they've asked to meet some people at the legislature, and Veronica and I are going to be here, and anybody else that wants to come, they'll be here for about an hour or so. And regarding the rescue plan funds, this is a rare moment Mike Lane might be able to speak to this, but I don't imagine this has ever happened where the legislature has been given a bunch of money to distribute this way. So it's uncharted waters for all of us. I think that it's a learning process. I think all of us have different opinions on it, and you'll hear more about them. So thanks.
Thanks, Randy. Mike Sigler.
Just a few things. I do also want to recognize Aurora's passing. Her calling hours will be on Sunday, 1 p.m. at Bangs, if you want to show for that. I knew her a very long time, and was one of the first people I met, actually, when I got into politics. So just really a treasure, and really put us on a path with the clerk's office that, Maureen has certainly taken up that mantle and has done that now for almost 10 years. And I think that really shows how great Aurora was, that a legacy like that kind of continues on, even when you've left the job and now when you've passed. That's something I think we all can strive for. A little bit about this, the fund too. I don't want people to think that their time was wasted coming here. The door, I think, is still open in my mind. Things come out of committee all the time, and we debate them on the floor, and we take things out, and we fashion it because the priorities of the committee, not that they're not shared by everybody, but maybe the other people on the legislature have different priorities. And that's what we're going to be hashing out in the next 2 weeks. I think a lot of it will be done on email, and a lot of it will be done in public. And I think at the end, we'll have a great solution. But I do want to congratulate, the people that put this listing together. Were conscientious about it. It wasn't like it was a fly-by-night kind of operation. It wasn't like I don't see anything on the list that jumps out and I go, oh God, how did you do that? It's not that. It's a matter of priorities, and that's what all budgeting is. So again, I don't want anybody to feel like they've wasted their time here, because I have listened to every one of you, and to be honest, I'm going to look at every single proposal that made the short list here and see which I think are better. And who knows? Maybe they'll be the same, but I don't foresee that, because I'm never like that. But we'll see where we get to at the end. And I think everybody on the legislature will be doing the same thing. I also just want to briefly mention what's going on in China. I don't generally delve into international issues, although I know we do that here. The fact that you have unprecedented protests in China with the government that's frankly just locking people away in buildings, and then when they catch fire, the people burn to death. It's really just an unbelievable scene. Not condemning China as a country, I'm condemning China, the government. So I want to be clear about that. And we like to talk about human rights quite a bit here at the legislature, and I think that's a good thing. And I think with a country that has one of the largest populations in the world, the fact that they have that kind of reach and can really lock down their country to a point where people who know that they're going to be punished for those protests, and their families are going to be punished, and their extended families are going to feel it too. The fact that they actually are rising up and are willing to report on what's going on in that country right now is nothing short of remarkable. So, thank you.
Thank you, Mike. Mike Lane.
A couple of things. Sorry, Mr. Geisler left, but I'm so pleased that he raised this issue about mobile homes, something I've talked about over the years, and trying to find funding for so many mobile homes that are so substandard and are the home for a lot of elderly, particularly, and people who simply haven't got the resources for somewhere else. So let's keep that in mind. Aurora Valenti, thanks Rich, thanks Mike for mentioning that. When Aurora was first elected to the office of county clerk, our county clerk's office was not in the best shape. The employees were not happy. Customers were not always happy. But I'll tell you, Aurora turned the world around and changed that into an office where people were pleased to go in there. The employees were pleased to work there and felt that they were important. Began the change of DMV to what it is now, which is the model for around the state of people wanting to use our DMV. Back then, they didn't want to use our DMV. They'd go to other counties. Aurora was a big part of that. She had a wonderful personality. And I do remember the one thing when she retired she really wanted to do, and that was to be able to be invited to our 25-year club anniversary dinner every year. And of course she was. But I'm sorry that we've lost her because she was a treasure. And the last thing I wanted to mention, and I haven't mentioned it for a while, and that is we're approaching winter, or into winter, and we have people in Ukraine that are going to be freezing this winter. We have a war that's been going on since February. We have their flag up in the front of the chambers because we stand with Ukraine against aggression, against autocracy and totalitarianism. We stand with the people who want democracy. They want to chart their own course. To see missiles coming in to destroy the electrical infrastructure, to hit residential businesses, to try to destroy the spirit of the Ukrainian people, which they never will do. It's a pretty sad thing that goes on. So we stand there, but we need to continue to support our government and the government of Europe, governments of Europe and other places around the world that understand that this is a line that can't be crossed, and that Ukraine will succeed. Thank you.
Thank you, Mike. Any other legislator? Veronica Pillar.
Thank you. I want to echo some of my colleagues in thanking all the members of the public for coming, including those who have left. It's really good to hear from you all. One person was referring to some things I had said a while back, though not by name, and so I wanted to clarify, or just for some transparency. So what was referenced was a month ago in response to criticism of a colleague. I, in the same forum, opined on how our county's mission to build a better a place for everyone, without exception, without discrimination, better place for everyone to live, work, and play, how that and our county values of respect, equity, integrity, and accountability intersect with response to rhetoric and messaging that we see in various forums. And I think we all know that a lot of the hate and discrimination and truly oppression that we see in our society today and in our county, but I don't want to pretend that our county is like unique for a good or bad reason in this. It often, we see this in material ways, but a lot of it comes from the values we espouse and the speech we make. And a lot of times these bigoted ideas come in the form of dog whistles and subtle commentary and just a symbol painted somewhere and just some phrasing that you can kind of explain away. But also sometimes we see, individual flare-ups of violence, like we've been seeing more and more mass shootings recently, not always with a clear cause, but oftentimes like you look back behind the shooter and find that they have been trafficking in exactly this kind of rhetoric. And we also know that the targets of these things, people of color, queer people, Jewish people, disabled people, any folks, not from around here, not from the US in this case, are usually like the same people who are discriminated against, barred from spaces, less resourced. We, heard of some of these barriers, especially along the lines of race, from some of our commenters, not speaking on this topic, but it's all connected. And so, because speech and communication is so related to these kinds of material discrimination, not to mention violence and murder. I think it's important to call that out, regardless of where it comes from or who it comes from. It's not really about the speaker, it's about the content. And I think that's necessary if we're going to have a hope of achieving our aims of an equitable county, we have to call out that kind of speech. Our commenter mentioned Hitler and the Nazis in a kind of odd way, and I'm worried that we've lost the plot of our history a bit. I'm sure everyone knows that the Nazis targeted Jewish people in Germany, killed millions of them, and in their rise to power, they were stoking, hatred, frustration for many reasons, and trying to direct it against Jewish people. They also targeted other folks, people of color, gay people, Jehovah's Witnesses, Polish people, others I'm not remembering, and I do apologize. And this, this is a different thing than calling out hate speech. This is targeting people for who they are. One of the first things the Nazis did once they had a bunch of power was target the Institute of Sex Research in Germany, just for an example. It was in the 1910s and 1920s. It was one of the first places that was promoting contraception access, which I think we all can see now is a, extremely valuable public health tool. It was one of the first places that did research into queerness and homosexuality, and trans people. It was one of the first providers of early gender confirmation therapy. In the 1930s, the Nazis came, having harassed the director for years, they came in and burned the library and archives. Obviously no digital backups then, so that was a huge loss for a marginalized group of people that it took a long time to build back up. I don't think we want to get near that point now, so it's, we want to call out this targeted rhetoric before it gets that bad. And so I think if you, like all of us, are concerned about any sort of return to Nazi rhetoric, telling a queer legislator to stop trying to be anti-racist is a very strange choice. And I think maybe we could all, perhaps except Mike Lane because he knows all his history, but we could all look back in history a little more and see what led up to what we're trying to prevent. That's all.
Thank you. Next, Randy Brown.
Yes, I wasn't going to bring this up, but I will bring up a little history on Hitler. If you read newspapers from the 30s, our local newspapers and national newspapers were praising Hitler in saying what great things he was doing in Germany. So don't believe everything you read. But I'd like to address Mr. Fenner, I think his name is. Myself and other legislators do believe it's an environmental hazard down there in the encampments. I've been down there. I've seen needles everywhere. I have numerous friends who live along the lake, and they find needles on the shore all the time. I mean, weekly. They walk their beaches, and they find needles that just washed up because that's where they're going. They're going in the water down there. So I do think the county needs to put a strategy forward for that, and I just wanted to let you know that's how I feel.
Thank you, Randy. Anyone else? Okay, thank you. There were two speakers that were not noticed earlier that I believe are still on. The first one is Vanessa Greenlee.
Hello, good evening, everyone. Yes, I am here, a resident of Newfield, New York. I request video access as my remarks have a visual component. Is that a possibility?
Yeah, that's fine. And we are keeping to the 3 minutes since we've already actually ended the the privileges of the floor for the public. So we're making some exceptions here. So we're trying to keep it at 3 minutes.
Yes, and because I don't see the clock anymore, I hope you'll help me stay true to time. I don't wish to overstay my welcome. Hello, everyone. Vanessa Greenlee, resident of Newfield, and I'm here this evening speaking on the Community Recovery Fund work that the county is doing. Thank you all for your service. You know, it's getting colder weather, and colder weather makes some of us think about chili. Here in Newfield, the Newfield Covered Bridge Market is famous and respected. I'm going to be on the phone for 3 minutes, you guys, for having won the 2022 Chili Cook-Off. I'm here as a community supporter of that, of this small local business that's very dear here to us here in Newfield. And I have here I'm not sure if you can see it, this is a can of beans. Beans are an ingredient in chili. The Newfield Covered Bridge won the Chili Cook-Off in 2022 on the Ithaca Commons. Maybe many of you attended. So I'm not really sure how many beans are in a can of beans, but for the purposes of this illustration of talking about food access and food security, we're going to say there's maybe 300 beans here in one can. So according to, if you take census data and you overlay that with the New York State health data for a number of food establishments, there are 5 food establishments right now currently in the town of Newfield. And if you looked at, compare it against population data, we have for every, well, let's back up. Let's talk about Ithaca, sorry. For every 289 residents of the city of Ithaca. Okay, so one can of beans here. There is one food service establishment. There are 222 food service establishments in the city of Ithaca. In the town of Newfield, there are 5. There are 5. So that is, and if we were to take a population and do a comparison, you need 4 of these cans of beans, okay, 1,000, oh, now we have video. Now we have video. I can't see what I can see here on this application. For 1,100 residents in Newfield, there is one food establishment. Okay, so to summarize again, now that I have video, in the city of Ithaca, 286 residents share one food service establishment. In the town of Newfield, 1,100 residents share one food service establishment of those 5 that we have, and one of them is a covered bridge market. Now, if you really go through and look at those 5, well, 2 of them are the elementary school cafeteria and the middle high school cafeteria, and one of them is a bakery of cakes. So that leaves Sebring Inn for food service, and that leaves the Newfield Covered Bridge Market. I am not sure if I'm showing right now. I had intended to have a backdrop of the Tompkins Food Future map that has in the bottom right-hand corner, you'll see the area of Newfield.
Vanessa,
and those stripes.
I'm sorry, your time is up.
Oh, okay.
Sorry
Thank you
about that.
very much. Encouraging the access to food in Newfield.
Okay, thank you. Okay, Aloja Arawelli. I think I said it right the first time.
Thank you.
Hi, Aloja.
Can you hear? Yes, good evening, everyone. Can you hear me?
Yes, we can.
Thank you so much. I do want to always acknowledge the great work, consistent work of the legislature. This evening, I am actually calling in to just request for a reconsideration of the vote and not to support, the request made by Finger Lakes Reuse. In the work that we have been doing in workforce, training, Finger Lakes Reuse has been a vital partner in the sense that we use Finger Lakes Reuse research program, the apprenticeship, is our most reliable source of on-the-job training for now. And I really can't say enough about the needed support for this organization to continue to expand and to consolidate all of the good work it is doing. And I don't have many more words to say other than I know that the county is flooded with a number of requests, with a lot of requests, but I do really urge a reconsideration of that vote, and please support Finger Lakes Reuse. Thank you so much, and may you all continue to be healthy in this time. Thank you for allowing me to speak.
Great, thank you. Okay, next up is the chair's report, and I actually do not have a chair's report this evening. I'm going to turn it over to Lee Shirtliff, who's going to make a motion for a few of our new positions.
Thank you, Chairman. I want to bring forward a recommendation discussed at Budget, Capital, and Personnel Committee and move to appoint Andrew Brahman-Rue, I apologize if I'm pronouncing that incorrectly, as Interim Finance Director effective November 28, 2022.
Seconded by Mike Lane. And if we could do a roll call, please.
Greg Mezzi?
Yes.
Veronica Pillar?
Yes.
Lee Shirtliff?
Yes.
Mike Sigler?
Yes.
Travis Brooks?
Yes.
Randy Brown?
Yes.
Amanda Champion?
Yes.
Rich John?
Yes.
Dan Klein?
Yes.
Ann Corman?
Yes.
Mike Lane?
Yes.
Shauna Black?
Yes.
With 12 ayes, 0 noes.
Great. Drew, would you like to say a few words?
Just would like to say thank you very much. We miss Rick already, and I will do my best to fill in the interim, and I appreciate your support in taking that role on. Thank you.
Great. Thank you and welcome. Okay, you're up again, Lee.
Thank you. Members of the legislature met last week, essentially as a committee of the whole, and almost everybody was participating, and there was a final set of interviews for the clerk of the legislature, and very good choice was given to the group, and they're moving forward. We are moving forward. The confirmation or a motion to appoint Katrina McCloy as clerk of the legislature effective January 1, 2023, and waiving the residency requirement in so doing.
Okay, thank you, Lee. Can I have a seconder, please? Seconded by Greg Mezzi. And any comments? One thing that I did forget to mention is that we could have gone into executive session, but I messed it up. So I hope no one feels the need to go backwards. Okay. If anyone would like to go into executive session to speak about this appointment, then we can certainly do so. If not, we can move forward with a roll call vote.
Greg Mezzi?
Yes.
Veronica Pillar?
Yes.
Lee Shirtliff?
Yes.
Mike Sigler?
Yes.
Travis Brooks?
Yes.
Randy Brown?
Yes.
Amanda Champion?
Yes.
Rich John?
Yes.
Dan Klein?
Yes.
Ann Corman?
Yes.
Mike Lane?
Yes.
Shauna Black?
Yes.
12 ayes, 0 noes.
Would you like to say a few words, Katrina?
I'd like to say thank you, and I'm really excited for this opportunity, and I appreciate all the confidence that you have in me, and I look forward to working with each one of you moving forward. Thank you.
Welcome aboard. Okay. Next, we are going to move on to the reports by our county administrator, Lisa Holmes.
Thank you. I just have a few brief
remarks for my report tonight. I also want to just say a few words about Aurora Valenti, having worked with her for many years in the county as a department head. And we shared quarters in the basement of the county courthouse for many years. And she was just the consummate public servant. And as many of you referred to, did wonders for the county, for the clerk's office, for the DMV. It seemed like every few months, under her leadership, the clerk's office was on some state or national top 10 list, bringing in grants. And at one point, Joe Mariano referred to Aurora and Mo, as her deputy, as the Kardashians, because they were constantly in the news, making headlines, and so it was very funny. But she was a wonderful person, and so great to work with. So I just wanted to remember her fondly. And then very briefly for my report, I just wanted to update the legislature that in terms of the IAED task force, a notice and proposed schedule of meetings was sent out today, which I believe will chart a course for us to complete the charge of that task force by March as scheduled. So more to come on that.
Thank you, Lisa. Any questions, comments for Lisa Holmes? Okay, thank you. County Attorney Bill Troy.
Not much to report, but I can tell you that I will put together a written report as to all the matters in litigation that are going on now. Seems to be growing, and you'll have it by the next meeting.
Thank you. Any questions for Bill Troy? Comments? Okay. Next up, Director of Finance, Drew Brayman.
Good evening. Thank you, Shauna. Brief report today on sales tax. I know it's been a while since Rick presented our sales tax report, so I'll go through this briefly. In your packet, it was on page 5. We have August, September, and October in the report. So I'll focus mainly on September and the third quarter. August, we had a very good month. We had a increase of about 9% for the August receipts for the county. And at the end of August, we had year-to-date of just over 28 million compared with not quite 26 million in the previous year, which is very good. Scrolling down to the next page in the report is the graph. I'll skip down to the September report, which September, as you can see, kind of flattened out. I'm going to focus. Let me see if I can increase that a little bit. Nope. So September last year, the county share was 4,786,000. This year we were 4,797,000. So the increases that we've seen so far this year have definitely slowed down. The sales tax receipts well above last year or not much above them. That will take us into the third quarter report, which is located on page 9 in your report, and this really brings us up to date where we're at with the sales tax currently. For the quarter, we did see almost a 4% increase, which is much lower than the first couple quarters of this year. So far, year to date, we have 32 million, almost 33 million, 32,923 that we've received for the county share. That compares to $30.5 million last year for about a 7.8% increase in the county share. So with the budget so far this year, I'll scroll down just a little bit. Our budget for the full year was $32,883,000. And we're currently at $32,923,000. So we're about 86% of our budget with only 3 quarters of the year reported. So we are expecting to exceed budget for this year, definitely on the sales tax, which is good news. The cautionary news is that the increases are getting smaller in the last couple months. The next meeting, I will have the October report done, and hopefully the November receipts will be in by that meeting as well. We've only received one of those to date. So with that, I will stop sharing and opening it up to any questions.
Any questions for Drew? Comments? This might be the shortest accounting. I'm not saying it's better, it's just different. And I think it's actually better. I like the short ones. Okay, no questions or comments? People are being really nice to you, your first one.
They are.
As long as you bring good numbers, though, it's very easy to be really nice. So
thank you. I'll keep trying
keep
to
it
do
up.
that.
Yes.
I'll keep doing that. And next meeting, we'll have the casino report as well.
Oh.
So.
Great. Thank you, Drew. Are there any resolutions to be added or withdrawn from the agenda? Greg Muzzy?
Can I ask a question under the Planning, Development, and Environmental Quality Committee? There's an advisory report, appointment ID 11334, which essentially is my appointment to the SCPB. As I know, we discussed previously that didn't seem to be much objection to including that in the consent agenda. Is there a way to move that up, or do we need to vote it on it where it sits?
I think at this time it needs to be voted on separately.
Okay,
It wasn't, there was an abstention at the committee level, so that's why it's not on the consent agenda.
Got it, okay. All right, so someone will just need to move that when I give the PDEC report for Ann.
Great. Thank you, Greg. Okay, moving on to the consent agenda. Resolutions and appointments to be voted on as a group unless any member of the legislature requests that a resolution or appointment be instead included separately and individually as part of the business of standing or special committees. Advisory board appointments. Okay. Workforce Diversity and Inclusion Committee, Kate Shanks Booth, county staff. Term expires December 31st, 2025. Ann Corman, legislator, term expires December 31st, 2025. Environmental Management Council, all of the terms that I'm going to list are going to expire December 31st, 2024. Susan Riley, at-large representative. Brad Will, at-large representative. Marley Bonnequist Curran, at-large representative. Brandon Hoke, at-large representative. Lisa Strayer, at-large representative. Ronald Szymanski, Village of Freeville representative. Stephanie Redmond, Town of Enfield representative. Thomas Corey, his term will Village of Dryden representative. His term will expire December 31st, 2023. Planning Advisory Board, all of these terms will expire December 31st, 2025. Emilia Fournier, Built Environment Design Representative. Christine O'Malley, Cultural Historic Preservation Representative. David Herrick, Infrastructure Utilities Representative. David Key, Local Planning Representative. Jordan Decker, Energy Representative. Strategic Tourism Planning Board, Brett Broussard, Arts Culture Representative, and all of these will expire December 31st, 2025. Steve Stoll, Arts Culture Representative. Alex Zaharas Grimm, Lodging Representative. Kelly Makosh, Recreation Representative. Jeremiah Swain, at-large representative. Marion Ware, at-large representative. Water Resources Council, these will expire December 31st, 2025. Annie Bastoni, Arts Culture Representative. John Negley, TC Soil and Water Conservation District Representative. Steve Riddle, Water Purveyor Representative. Budget, Capital, and Personnel Committee, Resolution A, delegating to the Finance Director of the County of Tompkins, New York, the power to authorize the issuance of and to sell $10 million revenue anticipation notes of said county in anticipation of receipt of state aid during the fiscal year of said county commencing January 1st, 2023, ID 11279. Public Safety Committee, Resolution B, authorization to accept grants and execute contracts from the Office of Indigent Legal Services, assigned counsel, ID 11287. Health and Human Services Committee, Resolution C, Budget Adjustment, Tompkins County Office for the Aging American Rescue Plan Funding, 2022, ID 11311. Resolution D, Budget Adjustment, Tompkins County Office for the Aging Wellness and Nutrition Program, ID 11307. Resolution E, Budget Adjustment, Tompkins County Office for the Aging Community Services for the Elderly Program, ID 11306. Resolution F, Acceptance of Long-Term Care Ombudsman Program, American Rescue Plan 2 and Long-Term Care Ombudsman Program Advocacy Enhancement, Tompkins County Office for the Aging, ID 11291. Resolution G, Budget Adjustment, Tompkins County Youth Services Department, State Aid, Final 2022 State Aid, ID 11290. Resolution H, accept New York State Dwyer Peer-to-Peer Services Grant, Department of Veteran Services, ID 11259. Facilities and Infrastructure Committee, Resolution I, authorizing 2022 Federal Transit Administration Section 5311 grant application for Tompkins Consolidated Area Transit and Tompkins County, ID 11314. Government Operations, Resolution J, adoption of appropriate, what is that word?
Apportionment.
Oh, thank you, Mike. Apportionment of taxes for 2023, ID 11232. That is as adopted by the committee. That should be in your red folder. Resolution K, return school taxes, ID 11231. Resolution L, returned village taxes, ID 11230. Resolution M, date of 2023 organizational meeting, ID 11229. If I could have a mover, please. Moved by Travis Brooks, seconded by Amanda Champion, and we will do a roll call.
Greg Mezzi,
Yes.
Veronica Pillar,
Yes.
Lee Shirtliff,
Yes.
Mike Sigler,
Yes.
Travis Brooks,
Yes.
Randy Brown,
Yes.
Amanda Champion,
Yes.
Rich John,
Yes.
Dan Klein,
Yes.
Ann Corman,
Yes.
Mike Lane,
Yes.
Shauna Black,
Yes.
12 ayes, 0 noes.
Thank you. Moving on to our standing and special committees, Budget, Capital, and Personnel Committee. Deborah Dawson is not with us this evening, so we will look to Lee Shirtliff, Vice Chair.
We have not met since the last meeting, and Katrina or Kathy, can you remind me when the next meeting is? Monday, I believe?
December 12th.
December 12th at 3 o'clock. Thank you.
Thank you. Any questions for Lee? Okay. Workforce Diversity and Inclusion Committee, Ann Corman and Veronica Pillar are chairs or members.
I can take it. The Workforce Diversity and Inclusion Committee has not met since our last meeting, but we are meeting Wednesday, December 7th, tomorrow at 3:30 p.m. Going to be covering some report back from the Facing Race Conference, our 2022 and then 2023 committee goals, and reviewing the committee bylaws.
Any questions or comments for Veronica? Okay. Thank you, Veronica. Next is Public Safety Committee, Rich John, Chair.
Thank you, Shauna. The Public Safety Committee has not met since our last meeting. We'll be meeting on, actually, we did meet. I'm sorry. I apologize. We met on November 17th, 2022. And we will be meeting on December 15th, 2022 at 3 o'clock here in Chambers. A couple things I wanted to mention. We talked about the functionality at the jail, and after our discussion, we're working towards preparing a resolution to pass on to the Facilities and Infrastructure Committee to examine what that would look like. The charge to the Public Safety Committee was to look at functionality. What do we want our jail to be able to do? But it's up to Facilities and Infrastructure to look at actual design and to get cost estimates. And we'll be considering a decision whether to pass that on to Facilities and Infrastructure to do that work. So I think that's a fairly important decision I'm anticipating we'll be making at our upcoming meeting. I would otherwise just mention our jail count is at 44 with 2 board outs, which is down just a little bit from our last meeting.
Thank you, Rich. Any questions or comments for Rich, John? Okay. Oh, you do have a resolution.
Oh, yes, I do. Sorry.
Thank you.
I have Resolution N, appropriation from contingent fund, replacement pay and terminal pay reimbursement, Sheriff's Office ID 11288, and I would move it.
Can I have a seconder, please? Seconded by Veronica Pillar. Any questions or comments on the resolution? Randy Brown?
Does this mean that it's not budgeted for this year, so we have to get contingent funds? Is that what that means?
Yeah. Per resolution, I believe it's the fiscal policy that we, because departments don't budget for terminal pay in their budgets, that it comes through the contingency fund and they can request because it's typically unexpected. Yeah.
Okay, thank you.
Good question. Any other questions, comments? Okay, let's do a roll call vote.
Greg Mesley?
Yes.
Veronica Pillar?
Yes.
Lee Shirtliff?
Yes.
Mike Sigler?
Yes.
Travis Brooks?
Yes.
Randy Brown?
Yes.
Amanda Champion?
Yes.
Rich John?
Yes.
Dan Klein?
Yes.
Ann Corman?
Yes.
Mike Lane?
Yes.
Shauna Black?
Yes.
12 ayes, 0 noes.
Randy?
I do have a question for Rich about the functionality of the current jail. Any construction would be quite expensive, I'm sure. And of course, those costs are just continuing to go up. Has there are there other counties that have excess space that we should be considering instead of building our own jail? Just like to get your thoughts on that.
There are, specifically because of bail reform, there are lots of jails, I believe, across upstate that have excess capacity. The problem, though, is what you're looking at is most of the ongoing cost of a jail is actually your labor cost, and adding significant costs for transport back and forth because they have to come back to court here, you would actually be spending a significant amount of money just driving people around. With that said, you're absolutely correct that the cost of the jail is remarkably high. Building secured space is truly expensive. However, when we've been looking at this, our facilities director mentioned that he's been essentially advising the legislature in the same way since the late 1990s, as we anticipated we really needed to do something about our jail and its functionality. And each time the legislature has had sticker shock and put it off, and the costs have gone up substantially every time. And realizing that, I think what we're looking at now is if we don't make a decision, yeah, we're just going to spend more later. We have a facility that was commissioned in 1986. It's gotten very hard use. It's served its purpose, but it's really done. And to try to continue to use it, we're running into real efficiency problems, and I think to some extent safety problems for the inmates and the corrections officers, and quality of life issues. That we went and toured a jail facility in Shenango County that has a pod system, and the difference in environment, you know, Mike was there, no, somebody else was, oh, Ann went as well. The light and space in the secured quarters for the inmates is just so much better. And the ability of the corrections officers to supervise because they can see everybody at one time. Right now, we have what's called a linear jail, where on a rotation system, a corrections officer has to walk through and look into the individual cells on a half-hour rotating basis, where you don't know what's happening in that half-hour interval necessarily. This would be a substantial improvement in terms of quality of what we'd be doing at our jail. But Beyond that, the functionality we're talking about involves much better medical facilities. What we have now is really not adequate to the needs of what we need to do there. We do not have adequate classroom space for high school equivalency, AA programs, and other educational opportunities that we want to make sure inmates are getting, with the idea that when people come to our jail, we don't want them to come back. And if we don't intervene and try to figure out why they were there and do something different, my view is that we probably will see them again. And I don't mean to be too long-winded, but you asked a really good question. So, yeah, there's a lot there. Yeah.
Any other questions for Rich, John? Mike Lane?
I just point out that the old jail was 50 years old when it was replaced. This is now, what, 35, 36 years old. And if you started out today to build another one, you probably can add 4 or 5 years onto that.
Okay. Next, we have Health and Human Services Committee. Dan Klein, Chair.
Thank you, Madam Chair. The Health and Human Services Committee met on November 21st. We had 2 presentations. The first was from the County Department of Planning and Sustainability with Elliot Benman and Megan McDonald talking with us about direct county involvement in housing issues. This includes the Community Development Block Grants and the Municipal Housing Affordability and Infrastructure Grant Program. That second grant that I just mentioned, that resulted from an over-target request through our budget process. And it provides support to municipalities working to address the community's housing shortage and the municipal infrastructure necessary to support housing affordability. The department's efforts also include tracking of data and collaboration with other departments and outside organizations involved in housing. Our second presentation was from Human Services Coalition's Continuum of Care. They presented a new plan that is called Home Together Tompkins. It was described as a roadmap. It calls for a commitment to build 100 units of permanent supportive housing and establishment of a low-barrier shelter. This roadmap does not provide any details about who would build these, where they would be, how much it would cost, how it would be funded. I do recommend that everybody takes a look at this plan and reads through it, because we are being asked to align county priorities with this plan. And I think that you might have many questions and reactions if you read this plan, so I hope you will do that. One thing that I'll mention from our meeting, we had 6 separate resolutions, which we voted on earlier tonight, through the Office of County Office of the Aging, County Youth Services, and Veteran Services Departments. Through those 6 resolutions, the county accepted over $250,000 in money from New York State for various programs. This is routine business for us, but I thought it was worthwhile to pause for a moment just to think about how much benefit our county residents get, because we have a really well-run county government. The next meeting of our committee will be on Monday, December 19th, and we will be getting a presentation from Reach Medical at that meeting. That's my report.
Thank you, Dan. Lisa, do we know when we are going to start hiring for the housing coordinator?
Yeah, we finalized a job description, and we wanted to start the posting actually after the holidays.
That's great.
Thinking that we'll have a better chance it's an applicant pool.
Great, thank you.
Just to clarify, it's a homelessness services coordinator.
Thank you.
That position that we're talking about.
Okay, perfect, thank you. Greg Mezzi?
Yeah, Lisa, would you mind just, I don't know if you did, and if you did, I apologize if I missed it, but if you didn't, could you circulate the job description with the legislature, please? That'd be great, thank you.
Any other questions or comments for Dan? Okay, thank you, Dan.
Thank you.
Next is Facilities and Infrastructure Committee, Mike Lane, Chair.
Yes, we met on the 17th of November, and we did have a nice report from Leo Riley out of Recycling and Materials Management. As a courtesy, he came and updated us on the progress of the capital expansion, the changes that were done at the recycling facility. And it was quite interesting to hear about it and to hear the reaction from that he told us from the public, which is much pleased with the changes. We had a report from our Highway Department, Jeff Smith, and we reviewed the capital projects plan map for 2023 and the highway roadwork map plan for 2023. Those maps that we get each year are always, of course, works in progress because winters can change the best plans of our highway department based on what may happen as far as potholes and everything else. But that's a good thing that we reviewed. Our next meeting is going to be in this month on the 15th, and we will be having a presentation from Historic Ithaca. They asked to come in and speak to us, and of course that has to do with our facilities on Tioga Street as far as those buildings, and they just want us to be aware of some of their concerns. Randy, other things? I have one resolution, or I'll take questions. Dan?
That proposed highway map for 2023, is that in the agenda packet from your last meeting?
I believe it is.
Okay. Okay, great. Thank you.
Okay. It's in color, too.
I want to go to the original.
I'd like to move Resolution O, affirming Ithaca Tompkins County Transportation Council, ITCTC, recommendation to increase the staff director's salary. That's ID 11284, and I'll move that.
Seconded by Randy Brown.
And if I could just mention that what this does is bring that salary in line with our management confidential, which it's always tracked in the past.
Okay. Any questions or comments? Let's do a roll call vote, please.
Eric Mezzi?
Yes.
Veronica Pillar?
Yes.
Lee Shirtliff?
Yes.
Mike Sigler?
Yes.
Travis Brooks?
Yes.
Randy Brown?
Yes.
Amanda Champion?
Yes.
Rich John?
Yes.
Dan Klein?
Yes.
Ann Corman?
Yes.
Mike Lane?
Yes.
Shauna Black?
Yes.
12 ayes, 0 noes.
Thank you. Any other questions for Mike Lane or comments? Great. Thank you, Mike. Next is Government Operations Committee. Amanda Champion, Chair.
Thank you, Madam Chair. We met a while ago. I can't remember. We had a nice, crisp meeting. Several of the resolutions we already dealt with. We'll see a couple more at our organizational meeting in January. One thing that was interesting that was in the agenda packet, folks may want to check out, was our final tally of how much legislators have used on your travel and training over the year. It's all laid out in a nice table, and you can see how much you spent, how much your colleagues spent, or if your constituents want to know how much you're spending on travel and training, it's all listed there. And just to reiterate, for next year, we will have another $15,000 put into the budget, and that's obviously approximately $1,000 for each of us. And you can start thinking about whether you want to go to the NACO conference, NISAC conference, or other conferences of your choice. We will meet again in January. And as we usually do, the January committee will remain what it was this previous year until a new chair is elected and new committees are set. So that's that, and I do have a resolution.
Go for it.
Okay, Resolution P, to update and adopt the Tompkins County Title II of the ADA grievance procedure.
Seconded by Mike Lane.
I don't know if folks have questions. I know Lisa or Bridget can say more if you do, but this is just an update related to making sure this is posted in all the appropriate places.
Great. Any questions for Amanda or Lisa? Okay, let's do a roll call.
Greg Mezzi,
Yes.
Veronica Pillar,
Yes.
Lee Shirtliff,
Yes.
Mike Sigler,
Yes.
Travis Brooks,
Yes.
Randy Brown,
Yes.
Amanda Champion,
Yes.
Rich John,
Yes.
Dan Klein,
Yes.
Ann Corman,
Yes.
Mike Lane,
Yes.
Shauna Black,
Yes.
12 ayes, 0 noes.
That's it.
Great. Any questions for Amanda? Okay, thank you, Amanda. Next, Planning, Development, and Environmental Quality Committee, and Corman Chair.
Greg Mezzi, our vice chair, is going to take it for me tonight.
I forgot about that. Greg Mezzi?
Thank you. We had, a meeting the end of November. We had the team from the Recycling and Solid Waste Center give an update on their contract, which was informative. We also had the Ithaca Area Economic Development Report. They went over their draft 2023 work plan, and they sort of introduced their 5-year organizational strategy. They're going to return, I think, sometime in January, February for further discussion around their 5-year plan. And they also had a presentation on their direct-to-work program. And if my colleagues will indulge me for just 1 minute, I want to sort of highlight what this pilot program was doing, because it was a really interesting program. I think it's worth knowing, and I think it's something we should be taking another look at and continuing to support. In July 2022, IAED, in partnership with Alliance for Manufacturing and Technology, launched its new Pathways to Manufacturing Direct-to-Work program. Aimed at preparing non-college bound high school graduates for entry-level positions with Tompkins County manufacturers. The pilot was a 6-week self-paced online training with 25 modules from the Tooling U SME curriculum. Participants that successfully completed all required coursework were eligible to sit for the Certified Manufacturing Associate Certification Test. The CMFGA certificate is a nationally recognized credential designed for individuals new to manufacturing industry. The program graduates also received a $500 stipend and direct interviews with participating manufacturers. For manufacturers to participate in the program, they need to be I believe living wage employers. They need to provide full-time employment opportunities, and they also need to provide benefit to newly hired job seekers or applicants. There was 24 folks that applied to this, 11 enrolled in the program, and 4 completed it. There is an opportunity for some of those that did enroll but did not complete to go back and sort of pick up where they left off. Just because it is sort of a self-guided program, we all know life sort of gets in the way, but it was a successful program. I know they're looking at this as a pilot, as a model to also look at manufacturing, construction, hospitality, and healthcare jobs. I think this is a great opportunity. Not everyone is college bound after graduation, and I think this is a neat way to train and create an opportunity for an entry-level program that's currently missing from our community. So that was that one. And then Office of Workforce Development, they talked about their summer youth employment program. They had 139 participants in 44 work sites. 38% of the participants were from outside the 14850 zip code, and 56 of the youth identified of having some sort of disability. So it was interesting to hear of the employers that are providing work opportunities to the youth within our community. And our next meeting is December 19th at 2 p.m. It was adjusted for the holiday, so that's a different time than it would normally be. And at that time in December, along with other things, we'll have an update on the Ithaca Conference Center project as part of the agenda. There's 2 items for voting. The first we'll do is Resolution Q, which I'll move, resolution to fund WIOA, the Workforce Innovation and Opportunity Act, Adult and Dislocated Worker Program through December 31st, 2022 for Tompkins Workforce New York, Office of Employment and Training, ID 11264.
Great, thank you. Can I have a seconder? Veronica Pillar.
This, I believe, is if somebody can correct me if I'm wrong, but this just advances funding so that there's funding in place to cover any expenses through the end of the year, was my understanding of the resolution.
I'm getting a nod, yes.
Okay.
Okay, any questions or comments? Okay, let's do a roll call vote.
Greg Mezzi,
Yes.
Veronica Pillar,
Yes.
Lee Shirtliff,
Yes.
Mike Sigler,
Yes.
Travis Brooks,
Yes.
Randy Brown,
Yes.
Amanda Champion,
Yes.
Rich John,
Yes.
Dan Klein,
Yes.
Ann Corman,
Yes.
Mike Lane,
Yes.
Shauna Black.
Yes.
12 ayes, 0 noes.
Great.
The next one is an advisory board appointment, ID 11334. This is an appointment for myself to the Strategic Tourism Planning Board. At-large representative term expires December 31st, 2025. If I could ask one of my colleagues to move that.
Randy Brown will move.
Move it.
Oh, Travis Brown, you'll second, or Travis Brooks, you'll second? Okay. Okay. Let's, any comments? Concerns? No, I'm just joking. Okay, let's.
Yeah, I'm happy to leave if y'all want to talk about
Just
me.
joking. Okay, roll call, please.
Greg Mezzi,
Abstain.
Veronica Pillar,
Yes.
Lee Shirtliff,
Yes.
Mike Sigler,
Yes.
Travis Brooks,
Yes.
Randy Brown,
Yes.
Amanda Champion,
Yes.
Rich John,
Yes.
Dan Klein,
Yes.
Ann Corman,
Yes.
Mike Lane,
Yes.
Shauna Black.
Yes.
We have 11 ayes, 1 abstention.
Thank you, that passes, congratulations. Mike Lane?
I just wanted to say, Greg, I know you abstained just to be squeaky clean here because you're voting on yourself, but I do think it's perfectly acceptable to be able to vote for yourself in a situation like this.
Thanks. Just a note, I did let STPB know that I would be happy to, if there was someone who sought an at-large seat and the committee decided, I'd be happy to give up that seat for a member of the community seeking that because I could always fill in the role of liaison from the legislature. So just so everybody knows.
Great, thank you. Randy Brown?
I'd just like to comment, Greg mentioned about the presentation on youth development. That was really impressive. I encourage people to read it. Danielle, who gave, and I've forgotten her last name, did the presentation. It was really quite impressive, I thought. So,
Excellent addition.
yeah, so that's what I'm sure. Yeah.
Anyone else? Any other questions? Ann Corman?
Thanks for the report, Greg. I just also wanted to mention the meeting. I think you might have said our meeting in December on the 19th is at 2, but but it's at noon. So I also wanted just to let folks know I'll be attending remotely, but Greg will be leading that meeting. So I wanted to thank him for helping out while I'm away.
Thank you, Ann. Anything else, Greg?
No, sorry, it is at noon. That's correct. My new glasses, I guess, aren't working. I'm all set, thank you.
Okay. Yeah. Thank you. Community Recovery Fund Advisory Committee, Dan Klein, Chair.
Thanks. I do have a short report. The Community Recovery Fund Advisory Committee has met twice since our last legislature meeting, on November 21st and then again yesterday, December 5th. Yesterday's meeting resulted in a vote to send the final package of applications to the legislature for our December 20th legislature meeting. We have narrowed down the package of proposed grants to 52. I will have a little more of an overview to give at our December 20th meeting, but for now, let me just speak very briefly about what is coming next. I'm working on putting together, well, let me try this again. I did put together, I wrote this earlier today, a more digestible spreadsheet with the help of MRB Group showing what is being recommended. I sent it to everybody just a short while ago, so you do have it in your inbox, and I've also asked that it be posted on the county's website. So that's like a status report of where we're at now. At our December 20th meeting, we will move the package as a whole. Any legislator can propose amendments to modify what is in that package, And then the only thing I just want to remind you again, I've mentioned it a few times, keep in mind that if you propose to add funding, you have to state where that funding is going to come from. And that's it. I'm happy to answer questions.
I also wanted to step forth, I won't say ground rules, but maybe we talk a little bit about the process, because I could see it getting chaotic pretty quickly. And as much as I don't want to say this, maybe even a time limit, because I know that our next meeting, we're probably going to have a lot of people from the public come, which is a very good thing. But I also know that making a decision about $6.53 million after a 5-hour meeting, let's just say, I know this legislature is not at its best whenever we have those late meetings and have to make decisions. So, you know, I'm happy to think about us maybe setting an hour and a half or a 2-hour time period, which is, I think, plenty of time to debate this. And then us trying to figure it out. And if we can't figure it out during that meeting, we move it to another meeting in January. And I just wanted to set that forth. I know that's not typically how we've done things, but this is a really big decision. We've worked really hard on it, and we need to get it right. So, Randy Brown and then Mike Sigler.
I think, Dan, you and I talked about this. I think there's going to be quite a few of these that people will agree on and will have close to unanimous approach to. And I would suggest that with the process go through that way. It's okay, who agrees on this one? And you take, and you agree on those. All of a sudden, you've got 40 or whatever that you all agree on, and you can move forward with those so that you can get those grants out. I think you're going to get a lot of debate, and I know I'm going to debate a lot of the ones that I disagree with it, and I'm assuming other people will as well. So, but I do think that there's going to be a change. So.
Okay, I have Mike Sigler, Mike Lane, and Travis Brooks.
I'd actually like to explore that idea more, like tonight. Like,
we can't do it tonight because it's not on the agenda.
Exploring that process more. I mean, it would seem to me like there's probably 5 things that I would say, okay, listen, I'm going to take these out, but I'm pretty good with these other 40 or these other, you know, however many the case may be. And that way we're not debating. Otherwise, you're going to have people putting, well, here's my amended resolution, let's vote on that. Oh, well, I've got an amended resolution, let's do that. It would just seem like, and that seems to make a lot of sense to me.
And the problem, too, is that we can't let some money out the door, right? We have to do it all at once, is my understanding, Dan?
Can you repeat that question? I'm not sure I understood.
Yeah, I think Randy said we can agree upon a certain amount of funding, and then we can get those out the door. But I think it has to be, all of the funding has to go out at the same time, isn't that?
I don't think so. Lisa, do you have a thought on that?
That's my understanding.
I don't. I think that probably, given the fact that if you put some things out the door and then you're making decisions on the remainder, it's that everything's a bit interconnected. So I think ideally you should vote on, as a package. Is it possible? Yes, it's possible. I believe that it's possible, but I think that it's a path that may be difficult to tread if you go in that direction.
Okay. Mike Lane, Travis Brooks, and Dan Klein. Sigler, were you done?
Well, I don't understand that, what she just said. I don't understand why that would be difficult. I mean, the money's been sitting there for 18 months or 12 months now. I don't understand why, if we spent $4 million, then we still have $2 million, and then we're going to make that decision. And it's not like we're going to let that sit another year. We're going to make that decision relatively quickly. A lot of communities have done this. It's not, this actually isn't that.
I think MRB had given it some reason why it would be good just to have all of the money leave out the door in one process. And they're not here, so they can't actually add to the conversation. Mike Lane, Dan Klein, and Rich John.
Just want to make sure that you're finished with that discussion. I have something else about this.
Sure.
Okay. Dan, I just wanted to thank you and your committee As we know, there was an application from the town of Dryden for broadband funding that somehow slipped through the cracks. And we don't know where the mistake was made, but it wasn't reviewed initially. And I want to say thank you for taking that up in the committee for discussion. I think it was very important that that be given a fair hearing, and I think you have done that.
Thank you, Mike.
Thank you, Mike. Travis Brooks.
I guess to Randy and Mike's point, if you have to take money from one of the programs to pay for a program that you're adding in, how do you advance programs forward? Some money has to come from somewhere to pay for the programs, so we have to come to some consensus about what we are going to fund, then take money from a program we're not going to fund. So you have to have equal balance of funding that you're not going to fund to pay what you like. It seems a little more difficult to do in segments rather than all at one time. So if you say that you want to fund this program and that program is $300,000, but you got $200,000 left in the pot because you put other programs forward, then you got to pull a program that you put forward out to fund that. So I don't, and maybe it works and I'm not thinking of it right, but it seems to me that this isn't like the budget we just did, where you can approve certain things and pull money from the fund balance and this, that, and the other. This is one pot of money, and if you're going to fund a different program, you have to unfund or reduce what you're funding in another program. I don't see how you could do it in part and parcel and not just one big block.
Okay. Dan Klein, Rich John, Randy Brown, Ann Corman, and Greg Messy.
As we went through this process, we realized we were inventing this from scratch. Like you said, this is not the budget process, which is we just keep adding. This one is more like a division if you're doing it in math. And since we didn't have a formula to go by, we had to invent as we went along, and it led to some awkwardness and tension along the way. But I'll say more awkwardness, like we were like, wait a sec, if we just said we're going to do this, but does that really work? And we were thinking on the fly, and some of those things just didn't work. So I'm open to other ways of doing this, but I think we would I know that we would really need to think out how this would work. So, and you don't need to answer these, but are you suggesting 52 votes? And is each of those votes a yes or a no, or is it a specific dollar amount? Like you could increase this dollar amount or subtract that dollar amount? And then if you can do that, what happens, like Travis was saying, what happens at number 42 when you've hit your dollar limit already? What happens to those last 9 applications? Do you just add those dollars on later and figure out where to take them from later? I mean, add them on now or figure out where to take them from later? Or do you try to do that on the floor? I don't think that's possible. So those are the kind of difficulties that we will run into when we reinvent the voting process. And again, I'm open to it, but I just want to caution that we hit a bunch of roadblocks with these kinds of questions, and that's one of the reasons it took so many hours to go through all this stuff. So we really, if we do something different, we really, really, really have to think it out and plan it out, and I would suggest write it out. Thanks.
And then also to add 52 plus the debating. And you could debate for 20 minutes on one of those. I mean, you're recreating what we've spent the last 10 weeks doing. Rich John.
Thank you. Shauna, I agree with your comment that we do not want to make this final decision at 11:30 at night after a painful debate. And this looks like it really could go in that direction. So I like the idea of going as far as we can, and then if we don't reach the finish line, we put it off. But I'd make one proposal, which is and by the way, Dan and committee members, I did get to watch you guys in action, and I commend the work and the process you tried to follow. But if all of the legislators could go through the list and take a first pass to say, I'm fully in support of this at the proposed funding amount, and we look at any grant proposal that gets unanimous support, at the full amount, we take those off the table and they could be funded because nobody's going to go hunting for that money. And we could reduce the number of grants at issue that way and then look at the remainder. And it wouldn't take time at our meeting because we would have each of the legislators doing what the committee did, which is do your homework. Go through and say, I fully support this one, I fully support that one. We probably aren't going to see 40. It might be, 10, but we might make our job a little bit easier that way and reduce the amount of debating we have to do on the 20th. Did that make sense?
Yes.
Did I explain it? Okay.
Makes sense, but there are problems you're not thinking through yet. I don't mean that as an insult. It's just what happens to the other 40 applications?
Well, right, but they're
planned out.
$6.5 million goes down by the amount we've all agreed these get funded. So then you argue about the rest. But you take some off the table.
Okay. Randy Brown, Ann Corman, Greg Mezzi, Mike Sigler, and Amanda.
I think the process you're proposing gives the committee too much power. That's just my opinion. But you've already got the process in place. In your committee, each member submitted to MRB their recommendation of what they wanted to support to the spreadsheet. I've gone through every application. I've looked at everything, and I've got my sheet that you printed out and gave to me, and I've gone through and I've marked which ones I agree with, even with the amount of pay. Somebody wanted to increase, some wanted to decrease, but you've already got that process in place. So each legislature, if they choose to, can submit all this information to MRB, and then they spit it back out to us. I guarantee you 30 of them we're going to agree on, and we can just vote. I guarantee we will. Because I think we're on the same page, but you're not going to know if you don't go through the exercise. And if you had the chance to do it in your committee, then every other legislature should have the same opportunity. It's not right.
Ann Corman.
Thank you. I just actually have a question for Dan. If you could just reiterate, just to make sure people are clear that they're getting a package with all the recommended awards, because it sounds like some people maybe think it's prepared to vote on each one of them.
So it will be presented as a package, and every legislator has the right to make any amendments, which is the equivalent of saying they can ask for a change in any or all of the applications. Does that answer your question?
Yeah, I hope that's clear to everybody. I mean, so it's clear to me, but I just want to make sure that everybody else it's clear to them. Thank you.
Greg Mezzi.
Yeah, wow, we're here. This is great. This is a good problem to have, but there is some things that may seem problematic to some. I said a few weeks ago, I give the committee a lot of kudos, props, respect for doing the work. Recently, I was having a conversation with Mike Lane, and Mike, I hope I'm not speaking out of school, but he said, this is why we went to an expanded budget committee, because we get to this point where a few now have to present to the many, and there's disagreement. And there's not a real mechanism other than sitting here and belaboring points and sort of arguing it out as we would in an expanded budget committee style. So for the record, for the historians in the room, if we ever have the chance to do this again, we should maybe look, or whoever is at the table at the time should say, maybe we should all put in the time, and maybe we should all sit around the table, and maybe we should all take this seriously in the moment and be part of the committee rather than saying, I can't give an extra 2 hours here, I can't give an extra 3 hours there. That's just from a historical perspective. Hopefully somebody sees this in 100 years when they're reading the minutes, or one of us is still here sharing thoughts of the past. But I think that this is interesting because, and I've thought a lot about this lately, and I do trust the work of the committee. Do I agree with everything? No. Do I wish we would have the opportunity to vote on the larger items? Absolutely. I think there was some original discussion around, the smaller pools sort of getting presented as a package, the larger items maybe coming one by one. I much prefer that idea. But I also think that we set out in the process some sort of guiding principles, some things that were important, both on how to use the ARPA funds, but priorities for the county, which we sort of all had a somewhat of a consensus agreement on. But only the 6 members of the committee have been able to apply their personal belief or prioritize those priorities in a way that's reflective in the outcome. And then the 14 of us are asking where we may have prioritized those differently, and just asking to sort of move this through. And that's a little challenging, and I could see how my colleagues would be frustrated with that process and want to take another look at things. I don't know what the solution is, but I do think that we should move this up in the meeting, and we should push all the other business to the end so that nobody can use the "it's 11:30, we're tired," because I would much rather have that during the county administrator's report. Nothing personal, Lisa, or Drew's report. But not yours, Bill. We can keep yours early on. But I just think it's important that we, if we're going to use that as some sort of barometer of when to quit, let's do the hard work first. Let's put all the sort of the minutia, the parliamentary rigmarole towards the end of the meeting, so that we can get through this and give it the time that it deserves, because this is an opportunity. I also think that 6.5 million is not just the number. I think Dan has been. If you listen closely, Dan has presented, provide other ways to get this funding. Let's get creative. Let's figure it out. There's pools, there's pots, there's things we can pull from. There's levers we can adjust, and if we're serious about certain things and there's enough consensus among the legislature, look at how we got to the 6.5 number. There was hardly agreement on that. And maybe there is more money to be put towards this program. Maybe we don't have to wait till we get a consultant. I think we need to look deeply into other pots, whatever those may be. But I think, I hope we give it the time and space, and I hope it's just not asked that 6 people would look to the rest of us and say, oh, just trust us. Because if there was 6 people looking back at you all, ask yourself how you potentially may feel in that scenario, and if you would just go along with it. So I do think there needs to be a solution. I don't know what that is tonight, and I hope between now and then we can figure it out, something that's amenable to all folks and gives the community confidence that we gave it the time and space that it deserves.
Okay, so I have a final list here. I think most people have gone twice. Mike Sigler, Amanda Champion, Lee Shirtliff, Veronica Pillar, and Mike Lane.
I wanted to answer Travis's question a little bit, because, yeah, if we are set at this 6.5 million, and you're telling me, okay, come up with other money, well, then sure, I'll pick out things that I personally wouldn't fund, and I think that's what other people would do. I'm looking at like second wins, for example. I find that to be problematic. When you have the county legislator from that town saying X, and then you have the town supervisor on saying, yeah, I have concerns about this. That's a lot of money. That's like one of the biggest things in there. So yeah, there you go. I've come up with X amount of money, but I don't know if other people are going to say no to it. So I have no idea, but yes. So listen, all of their meetings were public, so it's not like I'm trying to bash on one proposal or another proposal. There were questions I had. I asked Dan about Wells College. I found it unusual that a college that isn't in the county is actually applying for county money. He explained it to me. Great. I would hope that a lot of people would have questions like that. New Route School, I have a great deal of respect for them, but now the county legislature is funding a charter school, first off, and is funding something that's a part of the Ithaca City School District. I don't know. I just didn't. I guess that was surprising to me that was the direction we kind of went. So yeah, if you're looking and you're saying, hey, we're looking for money, to spend on these other programs, well, then yeah, I think that's where the challenge comes. I personally look at the budget that way. I don't think we have unlimited amount of money in the budget when we go into the budget season. I want to keep taxes, as close to zero as possible, and we have X amount of money to spend. So I don't see this as really being that far removed from that. But anyway, I almost think you do kind of need 52 votes, or however. And I don't want the committee to think like, nobody's respecting their decision. You've narrowed it a lot. You started with over $30 million in ask, and you've narrowed it down to, a much smaller number. And have fleshed out what each one of these things actually is. So it's not, I don't think that us weighing in as other people on the legislature is condemning any of that work. It's budgeting as priorities. And anyway, I'll leave it at that.
Okay, Amanda Champion.
Thanks. I think that we should schedule separate meetings. If people want to debate every single application that came in and pick and choose their favorites, then I'm not sure what the committee was for and why they spent all their time doing this. I think that we have I'm sure we have a lot of other business at our next and last meeting of the year, and we should maybe just take this out of that, set up another time, and have full meetings that legislators can come and debate $32 million. I sent you all an email today. Clearly, most people don't agree with me. At the very least, we need a time limit for how long we can do this at a meeting. I strongly urge us to set some special meetings to deal with this. Thanks.
Thank you. I just want to hop in here too. So Greg, I understand, and that makes sense, moving this to the front of the meeting, which I'm happy to do. But I will say, after 2 hours, Rich has said this a million times, after 2 hours, nothing gets done. The conversation goes downhill. We become argumentative. We become disagreeable. Names start flying, and we're not going to have that. And so I think it does make sense probably to set a time limit of 2 hours. And if we can't figure it out in 2 hours, then we go for another meeting. Lee Shirtliff.
Let me hold back for a couple more minutes and
okay.
Go if that's all right. I want to organize my thoughts a little bit.
Veronica Pillar.
Thanks. I looked up a couple numbers from the spreadsheet that might be relevant. In the spreadsheet that we all discussed on Monday, we had already narrowed down, the committee had narrowed down the applications to 80 applications, which if fully funded would have cost $14.6 million. And what we cut it down to was 54 applications getting funding, I think if we include the ones that are like seeker delayed, adding up to $6.5 million. 6 legislators filled out the spreadsheet, and out of those 80 applications, the number of applications that got a unanimous, that had unanimity on the award from all 6 of us was 2 out of 80. So I appreciate the optimism about consensus, but I don't think that's actually feasible. I would support the idea of scheduling extra meetings. I also wonder if there's room for like some preparing and sharing of people's proposals and preferences, don't know in what format, obviously not deciding prior to December 20th, so that we aren't trying to hear and judge people's ideas for amendments for the first time in one meeting, because I agree that's not really possible.
Thank you for doing the math, Veronica. Mike Lane?
The 20th is shaping up to be a huge meeting. We're going to start out ahead of the meeting with a meet and greet with our Congressman-elect, which I think is important. We are going to have our normal agenda, and normally we have some cheese and crackers and that kind of stuff here. I fully agree with Amanda and Veronica's comments that we should have another meeting. Thinking back, I think when we were trying to set this up and figure out what we were going to do, we had a special meeting to try to set it up. I don't think we'd be out of at all out of whack to say that we need a special meeting to vote on this, especially as Dan has suggested, we all have the right to make amendments.
So would all of you be on board for having a full committee of the community recovery. Dan, you can chair that.
As long as it's a brunch.
Since you've done such a great job.
I'm willing to do that, yes.
Okay. And that way we just focus on this. And we're here until we finish it. It's not going to be the 20th, though. Rich John?
I think that does make sense. With Veronica's only 2 got unanimous approval in mind, I'd like some direction on homework that legislators should complete and a deadline to do it in advance of whatever meeting we schedule, so that MRB or somebody can collate the responses and try to set us on a track rather than letting us start fresh whenever this meeting is and just not have any idea where anybody is. I don't know if you heard me, Shauna.
I didn't. I'm sorry. Kathy was shaming me over here. She's slapping my wrist.
There you go. I was saying I would like some direction on homework for the legislators and a deadline to get it done in advance of any meeting we schedule, so that the information can be collated and we go into that meeting with a good sense of where people are on the different grant applications, so we don't just start fresh that day.
Makes sense. Dan?
So I think my committee colleagues are going to be upset with what I'm going to say next. I am open to Randy's idea that everyone gets to do the same exercise that we did, which is to fill out a spreadsheet and rank and divide up the money by our own recommendation, and that everyone that completes that process, we hand it over to MRB, they work their magic, and they merge into one document with a couple of asterisks on it. One, they proposed a way to process the information and how to prioritize it. And we had arguments about that, or debate, I'll call them debates, because there is no one way to do it. There's no one right way to weigh. It's not a straight average. I can't explain it better than that right now, but it's much more complicated than that. And you could have done it this way or this way or this way. There's probably infinite ways we could have done it. They proposed a certain set of rules. We allowed it. We accepted it. And when it was done, there were people that felt like, how did this happen? It happened because we set up these rules. So if we were to do this, we would just have to, ahead of time, just accept those rules. We can't debate the rules. That would be, I don't even know how to finish that sentence. And then the other is that I would expect if we did that process that everyone would just accept the results. No more debate. So I'm just one person, but I personally would accept that process. And then we could finish on December 20th with no problem.
Testing all 206 applications.
Yeah. Should I go back and explain what we did? Maybe I need to do that. So what I've been calling the merged spreadsheet. We arrived at that by every legislator on the committee having their own individual spreadsheet and saying, I think we should give this one this much money and this one this much money by ourselves. That's what we did. And we sent that spreadsheet into MRB, and they took all the spreadsheets and merged them. That's what I mean by that. So I believe, Randy, this is what you're suggesting, is that we just do that same process again with all of us. And the results are the results.
So Dan, we're not going to talk about like the 212 applicants. We're talking about the 60 or 50, because I think we have to have some compromise here, and starting with.
Start with the 80, like the committee.
Yeah.
Did. You're leaving out one component, though. We had a stop work point once we got to the $6 million.
Yes, thank you, Lee. Keep going. Explain that to everybody.
Well, everybody had a running tally going on as they went, and you were looking at the 3 tranches, and they were, I guess in the end we didn't strictly adhere to them, but we stayed very close to the amounts that were designated for the over 250s, the 25s to 250s, and the under 25s. As you moved along, and you selected the amount that you wanted to fund, whether it be the minimum amount or the full amount that was requested, or whatever arbitrarily you wanted to throw into the middle, once you got to the $6.53 million, we had kind of an oath here that we stopped at that point, went back and looked to see if there were some other priorities that needed to go in, and then we went through the subtraction exercise in order to put that in. But there became a cutoff, and they also provided us with a list of the next few that were highly rated but did not fall within that merged amount. And so I'm just cautioning, you can throw this open to 206 or you can throw it to 80, but you better be keeping an eye on the amount funded line every step of the way and prioritize yourself. And it is a grueling exercise.
Travis Brooks.
So if we do all of the applications, I just really have to wonder what was the point of having this committee and this committee doing all of that work. I mean, y'all busted your humps doing this work. There was a lot of back and forth. There was some hurt feelings. There was apologizing. It was grueling work. Like, at some point, we agreed that this is the process we were going to do. I heard a bunch of folks say, oh, we had a special committee figure out redistricting. This is what they came up with. We're going to respect it and go with it. And that's it. And so now we're saying we're going to go back through all of these applications and we're going to rate them. And we're going to, like, I just don't understand. I just don't understand what my colleagues were doing if this is what we're going to do. They spent a lot of time in meetings and on their own to get to this point. If we're going to reduce that number down to 80, 70, I don't know, 90, that makes a little more sense to me. But to go through all 200 of these, that's crazy.
So another thing that I'm thinking is that if there are 8 votes to pass this as the group that are the Community Recovery Fund put through, then this passes, and it passes the legislature, and that would be the decision. So I think at some point that needs to become the question. Are there 8 votes to move this forward? Because if there are, there's no need for all of us to waste hours on spreadsheets and debates.
Are you saying not have an opportunity to amend?
You could have an opportunity, but what I'm saying is if there are 8 people that are happy with what the committee puts forward, I mean, you could do all the motions to amend or whatnot, but if there are 8 people already saying, I will take what the committee says and vote for that, I trust the committee, then all you're debating is for nothing.
Well, I don't necessarily agree with that because maybe somebody will say something that will persuade somebody otherwise.
Yep. Rich?
It's possible we're persuadable, at least theoretically. But maybe there is some middle ground along the lines that Travis was suggesting, that I was thinking in looking through this list, I would want to give as much deference as I could to the decisions already made by the committee, that I would try to weight them more heavily. But perhaps how we could do that systematically is to say, we'll only look at the 80 that they ended up with in their last 2 meetings and only go from that list. And to that extent, respect the prior decisions of the committee. I know that's not perfect, but you're probably not going to get a lot of support for a proposal that's beyond those 80 anyway, even if you really like it yourself. And likely the ones that are in dispute are in that gap between what was approved and the number 80. And I would propose that we limit it to that number.
Randy, and then Ann.
Yeah, I agree we need to limit the number. I agree with that. Part of this is a structural problem I have with it. And when I look at Enfield, the poorest town in the county, getting nothing, I mean, there's just no fairness in that. And I realize they didn't score well and all those kinds of things. It's construction, it's whatever it is. But when I look at it and I look at us giving $1.5 million to one applicant, and it takes away from 10 or 15 other ones, it's the way I look at it. And we heard from some tonight, that are very due assistance. So I just struggle with that. So I'll put, if it's 80, it's 80. I'll add mine in. I guess I still have the right to do that, to put in ones that I would support. And I may only get one vote, but I've got to do it. I have no choice. So.
Okay.
Could we get a straw vote at least on whether eliminating it at 80 makes sense to?
Wait 1 second. Ann Corman had her hand up.
Yeah, thanks, Shauna. So listening to all this and having lived and survived the committee, it's a ton of work. I don't think people realize it, to do the best you can, which all of the committee members did. You're talking about reading, what was there, 100? No, there was like 200 applications. Yes. And you really need to read them all. You need to read all the scoring that MRB did on the applications. Then you need to go through all the processes that we did. And so I would really like us just to consider the way that the committee put it forth, as Dan was saying, that we're submitting one resolution. If you go back and if there's one thing you want to change, then, and if you want to add something, you have to suggest where it comes from. And if you want to go back and look towards, I can't remember where it was in the last meeting, but there was an example that Veronica did. It didn't pass, but Veronica proposed I want funding for this, and this is where I would suggest reducing other areas. And that's as simple, I think, as we could make it. If we opened it up to recategorizing it, it really is just throwing out all the work that the committee did and starting over. And so I would recommend sticking with the way that we proposed doing it. Thank you.
So Dan, do we happen to know what the amount for that spreadsheet, the one where we made all of our decisions? Because I think that's what we need to base. If we're going to do this, everyone needs to have access to that single spreadsheet. Did it have 80 or?
Yes, it had 80 applications.
80 applications. Okay. And maybe what we can do is have MRB send the spreadsheet to all the legislators along with every single one of the applications for the 80.
We have all the applications already. Right? You gave us, we have it.
Yeah, they do have the master list. We could work on, you will have access to it one way or the other.
Yeah.
Sure.
Okay. Yep.
Would that include the applications that were missed in the original?
Those did not get more than three votes. Those would not have made the spreadsheet.
The master sheet of every grant, though. All those.
Not the two applications, or the application or whatever that slipped through the cracks.
So the thing is that if what you're saying, Randy, you want to add Enfield Library at the bottom, then since there are no, I'm assuming there might not be other people that are also adding that, you might be wasting some of your funding and your ideas towards something that's probably not going to go anywhere.
I'm not sure wasting is the right idea. I don't look at it as wasting.
Okay. Okay.
Pardon me, Newfield Library and the Historical Society, I believe, is in the final cut that we submitted.
Yeah, no. I was just giving Randy an example of if he adds things that are not on our list of 80, then it would skew your calculations for everything else.
Randy would not be able to do that via the method we already exist because it won't appear on the sheet.
I could bring it forward and when we.
You could make an amendment on the floor.
If I have a place to pay for it.
If you're, yep, you could.
May I suggest something?
Yeah.
Briefly, what the hell? Perhaps we use our budget process as a model with a committee of the whole. You have a tentative budget, if you will, 6.53 million. You have a proposed budget that's in front of you. And rather than starting with over targets and considering whether to raise that or stay within it, maybe you put under targets in and you come out with a set of resolutions or set of motions from whomever as a starting point to reduce funding to a particular item or exit out. And once you have that set of numbers, throw it out there, make a bid for whatever you want to replace it with.
I think the spreadsheet does that essentially, and it allows MRB to do all the calculations, and we could do it at home. And then whenever we come to our next meeting, it is all up, it's black and white. There should be very little debating after that because we've all had input.
Limits to the 80.
Yeah. Also on these spreadsheets, and I will say they're kind of dummy proof in a sense that you can't put certain things in certain cells. You can only put numbers in, it has to be a certain format. And so it's made it to where essentially if you put a number in, you're gonna see that balance at the top go down. And at the end, you might have $27.11, and then you're gonna add that to something else, one of your line items there. Okay. Veronica, Amanda, and then we're going to do a straw poll if we're going to move forward with everyone getting a spreadsheet. It's going to have 80, can't believe we're doing this. It's going to have 80 of our organizations that have applied, that have already essentially made the cut for at least, I believe, 3 or 4 of the committee members. And then we will also need to figure out a deadline, and we will need to have that back to MRB, and then we will need to figure out a scheduled meeting time that all of us can make it to. So, let's see here. I lost my, Veronica.
Me, not to be dramatic. Okay, so part of this might be moot if this is our straw poll, but one thing, if we do the spreadsheet thing, actually, Dan, what you said was not making me a committee member upset until partway through when you said that we have to simply accept the rules and also simply accept the outcome. I think there's got to be room for debate on one of them.
When would that debate happen?
I don't know, because I don't know what we're doing. The other thing, also just noting, I don't know if anyone else is sitting here being like, I just wanted to accept the committee's results. But if we do that, I would imagine the way you signal that, if we do the spreadsheet thing, is just look at the spreadsheet the committee came up with, copy that into your spreadsheet and send that in. I am less than zero pressure for anybody to do this. But the other thing I wanted to name is I'm not sure if, I do think it's important for there to be room for other committee members to give input. I also, I think there needs to be, a limit on how much we could amend the package, but some room for it for the sake of the other 7 legislators and for the sake of public commenters who are coming and commenting and thinking that, reasonably thinking that it's going to make a difference. That doesn't mean we're going to do what they say. That's not possible. But I think it would be kind of unreasonably disheartening to say, well, it turned out that prior to this meeting, we had 8 votes for a package that was all set. Anyway, but one of my points was for the people who want to give input, is it that you want a 1/13 share of every little decision? Or is it that there are big principles, such as geographic diversity, that you think that the committee didn't sufficiently take into account? Because another possible model, not to throw too many things on the table, but the Travis you made me think of when mentioning redistricting, is with the redistricting, some people were saying we should just accept the commission results, but we didn't do that. A couple people objected, and they said, like, I don't like it because these reasons. We sent it back to the commission. They had another meeting. They addressed those reasons, and they ultimately didn't, like, change the packet, it wasn't the package, the redistricting, but at least, like, those particular issues were specifically addressed. And then the proposal was brought back and we voted on it and accepted it. So I don't know if there's room, like, with the will or with the scheduling to do something like that, but that might be simpler than everyone does the spreadsheet thing.
Okay, Amanda?
Well, yeah, I think we need to decide if the majority of people want to go back to the beginning and have everybody have a chance to do the spreadsheet, or if we want to do a compromise where we take what the committee proposed and then folks can have a chance, like our OTR process, of saying, I think this is what Dan was saying, was you can come and say, okay, I want to insert this project and I'm going to take it out of here. And everybody could do a couple of those, but not 15 of those. So we take what the committee has done, narrowed it down to something manageable, and then tweak that. Or does the majority want to go back and everybody have a chance to look at 200 applications? I think those are the two choices, and that's the straw poll.
Or the 80 applications.
But why would you only look at 80? I mean, there might be something on the other 120.
I think that's the compromise, though, is stating that.
I'm not sure there's a point to that, but whatever.
The committee narrowed it down to the top 80. Okay.
So that's just my assessment of where we are, and folks need to decide.
Okay, so we're going to do a straw poll, guys, because we've already been at this for an hour.
Did I hear what Greg's going to say? He's going to say something, not always at Twitter.
We're all going to say something.
Well, no? All right.
Because, I mean,
Let's do a straw poll.
If we're going to have a straw poll, can we be clear what we're voting on?
Yes. First, so we're going to have two options. And I'm wondering how to do this. Because you could ideally vote for both options and just not care, or vote for neither. So first option is to receive a spreadsheet with the 80 that the committee looked at, and to do the dollar amount, the allocation, each legislator do the dollar allocation, and then return it to MRB, where they will do all the processing. And then for our special committee, they will show us a spreadsheet. More than likely, they will send us back a spreadsheet with all of their math done, and it will show us how each one of these ranks and the dollar amount that they would recommend through their mathematical equations, and we will all see how it ranks. Essentially, you're going to see a line, and at some point below that line, those items are not going to be funded. Above the line, everything's going to be funded. So that's option A. The second option is to go with what is coming out of the recovery committee and us go back and forth with requests to make amendments. Is that right, Jen? Yeah.
That's right. May I say a few things about the first option? Just again, I want to make sure we know what we're voting on.
Okay.
So is option one, does that include, you said it includes the 80, so we've already narrowed it. Does it include the rules that MRB has already set out? And does it include an assumption that we're going to accept the results? Or do we do all this and then all the amendments start flying again, and we did two wastings then?
I think that's up to the group. I mean, I feel like at some point we have to have some ground rules, right?
Yeah.
Because if we don't, we're going to be here forever and we're not going to agree.
That's what I'm asking, what we're voting to vote on.
Rich?
Since I'd asked for the straw poll on this, I would say, yes, you accept the rules. That would be that's what we'd vote on here.
Okay.
And the results?
And the results.
Okay.
I need clarification. What do you mean by results?
That this is going to be like a mathematical process, that you'll get 1/13 of a vote, and when you're done, you will accept whatever the merge is, just as everyone else will accept it.
To Amanda's comment, can I bring an OTR type request forward beyond that? If I show where the money's coming from?
That's the question.
So you definitely have that right as a legislator to amend. I guess what I'm talking about, maybe others aren't, is kind of like an agreement that we're redoing this whole process, we're making lots of compromises, we're going to accept the results.
Yeah, and that's what I was saying, Randy, was that for this vote we're going to take now, you would accept the results, you would not bring OTR-type proposals. That we would be done. It would be a mathematical calculation based on all the work we individually did. And we'd live with it.
Because ideally, in the end, we'd end up there anyway, right? Because we're each putting in our own suggestion, and you could bring, one person can bring forth something, but we've all added our input. And so,
let me share my reasoning. So I'm completely against the $1.5 million, and that would open up a lot of money for many other things. So that's just how I look at it.
but that's going to be on your spreadsheet, which means that you're taking that off of your line item. And you know what? If 7 other people take it off their line item, that's going to just continue to drop down the line.
I would have money left over, is my point.
Randy, I voted against $1.5 million, but it did get included. I'm accepting it. So that's what we're asking. Will you just, even if you're not going to get what you want, can you just accept that result? No. I need to mention a couple of things just so everyone knows. Each application asked for a certain amount of money, and then they also stated whether they had a minimum or not. Some of them didn't state a minimum, but forget about that for a minute. So when you do your homework assignment, you cannot go below the minimum. You can say 0, but you can't. If they said, well, 20,000 is our minimum, you can't give them 10,000. So I just want to make sure everyone understands that. That's another rule that's in there. And then one other thing that you need to know is that even this scoring sheet, even though you're doing it at home or whatever, is public info. Just want to make sure everyone knows that.
Great. And so there's a maximum amount and then a minimum amount, and you can choose maximum, minimum, anything in between as well. Or no amount. And you could leave it blank, or you could put a 0. Okay, Greg Muzzy.
Yeah, we're gonna have to get to a conclusion, and I would be okay accepting the results of the committee because, if we do this work. I think if we have the scoring sheet, though, and accept the results of the scoring sheet, that is the compromise. What I don't agree with is it's only restricted to 80, because I necessarily don't agree, and some of my fundamental challenge is some of the 3-to-3 votes, some of the, other ones, and I think that's what I'm hearing from my colleague Randy is there may be a desire to move those up. So if there's 8 people that want to move something up, or if there's a number that want to move something up, I think we should be able to do that if the compromise is the sheet is the sheet, and then we vote on whatever the sheet gives us as an outcome. Because if people didn't put it on the sheet, I don't really feel like we can, but I do feel like we should be able to add projects that we want to see that we necessarily don't agree with the initial culling of the group.
Are you saying that we should be able to add them, or we're going through all 200 of them?
No, you can go through 4 if you want. You can put all your money, all your eggs, you can give 26% of the fund to one organization with $1.5 million.
That's what I'm asking, Greg, are we starting with the 8?
No, we're starting with the applications, because that's what we would be doing on the floor. And that is the legislative process that we're entitled to, based on the rules of the legislature, is to make motions on amendments. And if they fail, you can make them till you're blue in the face.
It's not a compromise. We're like right back to square one.
No, the compromise is when the sheet is done, the sheet's done. If Randy wants to put $1.5 million somewhere else, or I want to put $500,000 somewhere else, and nobody else wants to do that, we at least as a legislator, had that right to make that public statement. And then if others don't agree with that, the result is the result.
So it's open to all 200 applications.
So let's do 2 different straw polls. First one is going to be to do the 80. Second one is going to be all 212 applicants.
And then the third one is to go with what the committee has proposed.
That's right.
The way we started out tonight, Amanda, and
Yeah.
then we can just have the discussion and amendments.
Right.
That's option 3.
Shauna, can we start with the one that accepts what the committee, that resolution? Because that might,
yeah.
if we have enough votes, then we don't have to have the other ones.
Yes. That makes sense. Okay, so it's understood as well that if we accept the committee, there will be amendments allowed, and we will work backwards and forwards on that.
And set a special meeting for that.
And set a special meeting.
I would just say,
I think either way, we're going to have to set a special meeting.
we will not with the merged sheet.
Right.
The work's done.
Okay,
And
Yeah.
okay.
I just want to say, parliamentary procedure, you can't stop us from making amendments. Like,
Yeah.
that would be suspending the rules. And
Yeah,
all that
that's
stuff.
right.
So it's more of a, yeah.
Special meeting be prior to the end of the year.
I don't know.
Not.
Probably not. People are traveling. It's the holidays, family. It will probably be in January.
I think Susan really wants to get in on it, so can we
Wait
push
till
it
the
off till February?
26th or so, yeah. Okay, so let's do a straw poll right now. For those that would like to vote to start with the committee recommendations, with the idea that there could be amendments. And again, people can vote on more than one. Please raise your hand. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, and I'm 8. Okay.
Did you get mine, Shauna?
Oh, no, I didn't. Thank you, Annie. Sorry, I'm ignoring you. I have 9 for that. Okay. Those that would like to have access to the spreadsheet that has every single application, and would like to do their deductions on that spreadsheet, please raise your hand. 1, 2, 3. Okay. Those that would like access to the spreadsheet and would like the 80 applicants that were scored from the committee, please raise your hands. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8.
Greg calculating.
How is that one different
Greg
than the
Mezzi.
first thing we voted for?
First one's the original plan, the third one was starting from scratch.
Okay. So did you have 8 as well? Okay. So the one that got 9 votes was using the committee lists and then working through doing amendments.
Original plan.
The original plan.
Can we just go for it on the 20th and see? And if we need an extra, meeting, we set an extra meeting?
I think we set a time, 2 hours. And if we cannot do it in 2 hours, then we're going to have to work on it in January.
I was confused with that.
Well, the public comment would not count. Kathy will start her timer
When we start the discussion on the
when we start the
first one
discussion.
not that we were going to take the 80 that was suggested by the committee and, okay, I'm sorry, I was confused by the first vote then. I thought we were going to take the 80 that the committee was going to send to us.
The first vote.
Score them.
Option 3.
I think we have to do that again.
I'm sorry, that's my fault.
Okay.
In the plan.
Okay. So the first vote, I feel like I'm at a TCDC meeting. Just joking.
Where's the medic?
Okay. The first vote is for us to take the recommendation of the committee, and we can make amendments on the floor. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, Annie, 6, 7, and I'm 8. I swear to God, if we have a tie. Okay, next is for us to look at the full list, the spreadsheet with the full list. Please raise your hand. 1, 2, 3. Okay, that stayed the same. And then the last is for us to look at the spreadsheet of the 80 that were brought, or that were used for the most recent decisions. And all of us to receive a spreadsheet, all of us to turn it in to the MRB group and for them to do the calculations. Please raise your hand. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. Okay. So the winner again was using the committee. Gonna go again? No. Just joking. Okay. So that is what we are going to do. Next meeting, I think what we should also do is just make sure that everyone has all of the information that we have. They have all the applications or access to it. MRB should be invited to that meeting in case we have any other further additional questions. Sure. And then we plan on 2 hours. And we see how far we get. Mike Lane and then Lee Shirtliff.
2 hours is fine, but if you have 2 hours of public comment ahead of that, that's 4 hours.
Yeah, I know.
That doesn't count regular agenda.
Yeah, hopefully we can keep the meeting a little bit light. We'll have to see what's going on. Mike?
Can I just ask a question? And this, I'm sorry about this, but this proposal that Guido has out in Newfield to put this campground in, I mean, it doesn't have the support of the town. It doesn't have support of the county.
Hey, Mike, can we talk about this?
But how's he even going to get that zoned?
You know what?
You're going to put $1 million at something that...
We're not going to talk about it tonight.
Well, that's a pretty big policy thing.
I can address something about this legit.
Go ahead, Dan.
No, these are reimbursement grants, so we don't give them money that gets flushed away. They have to actually do the project, and then we'll give them the money. So if it gets defeated in Newfield, then we will not have spent a penny. Does that help a little bit?
That does.
Okay.
And we'll come back and we'll argue for where we're going to put the $400,000 and probably spend about 42 hours on it. It'll be fun.
Edie, sorry.
Okay.
Sorry, Mr. Gady.
Ann Corman?
Hi, thanks. I'm assuming that they're going to, that MRB would send links to all the applications, and just want to make sure that the scoring that they did was included in that link.
Yes, we will make sure that every legislator has all of the information that they need to make decisions. Randy?
I'd just like to clarify that the Newfield Library is split evenly among 6 libraries, including the Tompkins County Library. So the Newfield Library would get about $7,000. Just wanted to make sure there's clarity on that.
Thank you. Okay. Boy, what a meeting. We thought we were going to get out at 7:30.
No, we didn't.
Okay, let's
Sean,
do a minute. Yes.
Can the vice chair of the committee give a little cover to the chair and the rest of the members, just as a parting shot, not trying to change anything we've done?
Yeah.
Dan, thank you for your patience, and committee members, thank you. This has been a process, but there's something I want to remind everybody of that I think has been key in 6 people's minds as they've went forward on this. And it goes back to the whats and the whos. And where we've been tempted to look at who we're going to fund, the overriding thought has been what it is we're going to fund within the community's values and needs as we've gone along. And we've carefully weighed that every step of the way. Now, where who falls into this goes back to some questions I've heard here. I don't have a single project funded in this recommendation in my district, and I'm okay with that for one reason. To be transformative, as I have heard us talk about repeatedly, I know in most cases there is not the capacity in my district to carry out a transformative process. And if you look at an organization and you talk about whether we give them $500,000 or $1.5 million, look at what it is they're going to do. And is that organization the only one or one of few in the community that has the capability to take a transformative project and make it happen? Because there is one huge community need that I see as a responder that only one organization's got the ability to do, and is going to lose money in doing it, but may fulfill a severe community need. Keep these things in mind as you rate these applications and think about the who's. Now, as I left here the other day, one of my colleagues said, I've never been through a process like this before. And I started back toward my district, and I thought about it and said, yeah, I have been through a process like this. And let me just give you the little bit of history and try to encourage you here a little bit. It goes back to when I was your director of emergency response, and they formed a New York State 911 board. And one of the things the board was able to do was to, as a first step, allocate $20 million to the counties. It was the first amount of money the state turned loose out of the 911 surcharge. Several of us had to expend every bit of capital we had politically to get appointed to this board as county officials. I got appointed by Governor Pataki. A couple of directors got appointed by Speaker Silver. A couple got appointed through their ties to Senator Bruno. Bottom line was, what was going to be a state-dominated board all of a sudden had a half a dozen county representatives involved. We fought like hell to see that there was a fair distribution of this $20 million that came back out to the counties. And what happened was we went through a process where every county, and all 57 plus the city of New York, applied for a piece of this $20 million to get to phase 2 wireless capability. The first technology monies that ever went out. We had to go in an alphabetical order. That was the decision that was made. When we looked at this thing, we said, well, we got a problem here. If we fund all these requests, we're never going to get to Tompkins County. Then we started looking at what the priorities were we were going to fund. And basically, some of us in the county ranks realized that there were pieces in each application we had to vote to take out, knowing that when they got to our county, we were going to lose something we really wanted or really felt we needed. But the bottom line is we got all the way down through this thing, and a portion went back to every county, and they all got to some level of phase 2 capability. Now, what was transformative about this? It demonstrated to the state legislature and to the governor that there was a need for these monies to come back to the state. And where we got a pittance, we suddenly went from a few $1,000s each county got out of the surcharge to literally hundreds of thousands of dollars that now makes up a part of our budget. So you had a process, you had a capability, you had a lot of compromise, but in the end, it was transformative. Keep these things in mind, folks, because I think that's what your committee has done moving forward. Be really careful with what you're adding and subtracting, and keep it in mind. It's not necessarily the who's that we're funding, but what it is we're funding. And maybe we're going to be able to use what's been identified in this process as a means to fund some major community projects moving forward that we haven't traditionally been able to do under our budgetary process. Thank you.
Thank you, Lee. Yeah, definitely. I hope Dominic got some good sound bites for our press release. Okay, let's go ahead and approve our minutes. We have November 1st, 2022, November 7th, 2022. If I could have a mover, please. Moved by Travis, seconded by Veronica. Any questions or comments? Okay, roll call, please.
Greg Mazzi?
Yes.
Veronica Pillar?
Yes.
Lee Shirtliff?
Yes.
Mike Sigler?
Yes.
Travis Brooks?
Yes.
Randy Brown? Yes. Amanda Champion?
Yes.
Rich John?
Yes.
Dan Klein?
Yes.
Ann Corman?
Yes.
Mike Lane?
Yes.
Shauna Black?
Yes.
12 ayes, 0 noes.
Thank you. Any unfinished business? Travis? You want to get out. Would you like to move to adjourn us? Okay, a seconder, please. Second by Veronica. All those in favor? Yay. We're adjourned. Thank you.
Spreadsheet.